If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to MINDSHOCK. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and we have another flat Earth debate analysis today. This one was highly requested, so it shot to the top of the list. Our current Dunning-Kruger champion in these debates, and any debate, is, of course, Michael Sartain. No one has amassed the amount of fallacies that this Dunning-Kruger champion Sartain has amassed. But on that podcast, there was a lot of interest in this Earth Chronicles versus FED debate with the one and only Nathan Oakley, David Whitehead, Patrick Gunnels, and Josh Reid. So apparently David Whitehead and Josh Reid have a podcast, Earth Chronicles, and I will be getting into all of that in this logical analysis of flat Earth debate. Disclaimer, all of these logical debates, they're not actually about the shape of the Earth. They're about logical argumentation. I don't know why there's so many triggered goofs who they don't have the mental capacity to understand that I am not examining conclusions. This isn't about determining the actual shape of the Earth, regardless of what it might be. This is MINDSHOCK. I do not claim anything is true or untrue. The motto here, of course, is the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. So we are only examining argumentation and counting the fallacies and the zingers for comedic effect to see who will become the Dunning-Kruger champion if anybody can unseat the one and only Michael Sartain, which is going to be a Herculean task at this point, because I don't know if anybody can prove to be goofier than that goof, but we will see, and hopefully this will be very educational. As always, if you enjoyed the podcast, find it interesting and informative, want to help spread logic and reason to a world where it is quickly going extinct, as clearly evidenced in any and all flat Earth debates, as well as many other debates. You can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. If you're not getting the notifications, just like and comment on more videos. That's how the YouTube algorithm works. You can also help support the channel by becoming a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Access to exclusive streams and chats. Like and share. Help spread logic and reason. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast, or requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. I am not flawless. I am sure I miss logical fallacies and zingers as well for all individuals in these debates. If you believed I missed any, you can add them in the comment section or wherever. Okay, so just a quick intro. I will say this about Nathan Oakley, and some of these Nathan Oakley fanboys might get a little upset about me. Nathan Oakley actually did drop in on a few MINDSHOCK live chats, and he was not impressive, to say the least. Now, some people actually think he's the smartest and the best debater. I've seen a couple of his debates. Personally, I think Austin Whitsitt is actually head and shoulders above all without even a close second. So, I've never really been impressed with Oakley just because of the nature of his argumentation and, of course, his accent. And I'm the last person should be talking about voices, so I'm not claiming that this is scientific in any way, but I just personally, subjectively find him difficult to listen to. Again, that is not saying he's wrong about anything in that direction. Just, he's difficult to listen to, so I can only do it in certain doses, not like Sartain was much better. But anyway, Nathan Oakley came into the MINDSHOCK chat and embarrassed himself by proving that he doesn't understand even what an ad hom logical fallacy is. Because this guy, he talks about logical fallacies all the time. I'm sure he gets a whole bunch of them correctly. But in the MINDSHOCK chat, I believe this was in reference, I believe he dropped in on the David Weiss versus Flat Earth Dave podcast, logical analysis that I did on MINDSHOCK, and he thought I wasn't counting ad homs. Because, again, just to reiterate for people who don't know what an ad hominem logical fallacy is, it's when you attack the individual making the argument instead of the argument itself. So when you attack the argument itself, and then also in addition to clearly addressing and refuting argumentation points, in addition to that, if you also call the person an idiot or whatever, that's not an ad hom, because you have addressed the argument and refuted it either well or not well, whatever the case may be. If you address the argument, made your points there, and then added a descriptor or adjective of whatever kind, that's not an ad hom. But for whatever reason, Nathan Oakley couldn't process that. So I was not impressed with his so-called intelligence that many people laud him for. I don't see it. And then he got really triggered and started throwing a temper tantrum at me exposing his illogicality and why it wasn't an ad hom. And like a 4-year-old, he was just throwing this tantrum in the chat on how it really was an ad hom when it clearly wasn't, obviously. Because again, if the argument is clearly addressed and countered, and you simply add whatever, if you insult, if you will, whatever, descriptor, objective or not, calling someone a Dunning-Kruger goof, is that an ad hom? Not if I actually address the argument and clearly addressed and refuted each and every point, like I do here. Not that I don't do it perfectly all the time, again, but in general, when I call people Dunning-Kruger goofs, do I not address their arguments? Do I not point out the fallacies before calling them a Dunning-Kruger goof? And is a Dunning-Kruger goof, I don't even consider that an insult because, again, according to the definition of an insult, there's an intention to offend someone when you insult someone. If you're simply calling a spade, is that an insult? Some people can pretend and hallucinate it's an insult, but again, I don't consider that an insult because my intention is actually not to make them feel bad or insult them in any way. My intention is to be objective as possible and simply call it as it is. Because if some of these individuals have mental disabilities, that's not an insult to point out a mental disability, because if they can get the help they need, they can actually get smarter and stop humiliating themselves here in flat earth debates or any other debates or just on social media in general, because there's so many goofs on social media. Again, why do I use the word goof? People that are goofy or silly, illogical, if you will, are goofs. That's not necessarily an insult. That's in my opinion, accurate descriptor. An accurate descriptor. Someone being silly and illogical and humiliating themselves is a goof. And if they are suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect, where they're too incompetent to see their own incompetence, is that an insult? I don't consider any of that ad hom because I am addressing the arguments and then describing the people making the arguments after clearly addressing all of the arguments, not instead of. Simple concept, but for whatever reason, Nathan Oakley couldn't grasp it, threw a 4-year-old temper tantrum, had a breakdown, and then stormed off. I think he dropped it on maybe 2 different chats, and then he hasn't been back since his humiliation at being, that being pointed out. That doesn't mean he doesn't call out fallacies correctly 90% of the time, maybe 99% of the time. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of his content. But I did want to address that. I don't know, maybe I lost a lot of listeners for going off. But again, this is a logical podcast. I'm not taking sides here. I call it like I see it. Okay, now moving on to David Whitehead. I actually was a pretty big David Whitehead fan. I would say still am. It's just I haven't, I know him from the Unslaved podcast with Michael Tsarian, or however people pronounce his name. There's a lot of different opinions on that guy, and I don't really have a set opinion on Tsarian either. Some people also think he's some kind of gatekeeper shill. But there's a lot of, he actually put out a lot of great occult information. And again, for those who don't know, occult doesn't mean satanic. Occult simply means hidden knowledge. So there would be good and bad hidden knowledge, the dark side, the light side, whatever, good and evil. So there would be both included in occult. Occulted is simply hidden information, hidden knowledge. It doesn't mean bad. A lot of the time it is bad. People doing occult satanic sacrifices, etc., that's obviously bad. Violating the will of others, acting immorally. But there's also a good side of the occult, hidden knowledge that is beneficial. So, yeah, I know a lot of people don't understand that, so just to preempt the triggered comments, I just wanted to add that. Okay, so the Unslaved podcast used to be on YouTube. I don't think they're on YouTube anymore. I haven't even seen David Whitehead in a while, so I was actually kind of surprised when people requested this analysis. I see him pop up, so I am impartial to him. I believe he's on the Globe side here, so we'll see how that works. Josh Reid, I believe I've seen him before. I don't remember where. So I don't know what's going to be going on with him. And then Patrick Gunnels, also I don't really know him. Apparently he's on some kind of red pill something or other. Bringing forth red pill knowledge. Red pill project, Joshua Reid. So he's got here linked redpills.tv. Don't really know anything about this guy. So let's see how this played out. I clipped out some people accuse me of cherry picking some of these analysis. I actually play the analysis in full, except sometimes the opening and the close if it's just rambling that's not related to the actual flat earth debate. In this case, there's a whole bunch of technical issues they're having in the first couple minutes, so I clipped all that out. So let's get started here.
So, David, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead, buddy.
How did this come about?
It was a demand from people in the chat of our previous shows because Josh and I take a different position. And so they were like, you guys got to have someone on. We want to hear the debate. We want to hear the discussion. So I said, okay, fine, let's do it. So I just put a chat. I put like a message in the Badlands Media back chat. And I said, hey, is there any guys in our community that are into flat earth that want to come on and debate us about it? And Patrick's like, I'm your Huckleberry. I was like, all right, that's literally it.
So why you though? I mean, have you got a vested interest in the subject or something?
Well, I've had an immense curiosity. I've been following the subject very closely since 2014. I'm sort of I've gotten quite addicted to listening to flat earth debates for the last few years and making my own observations and doing this research. So my vested interest is to state a different position and for the audience to have these claims on both sides spoken about under scrutiny from the other side, so that it's not just people dumping information without having any checks. You know what I'm saying? So I really just want to get the whole story out there so that in the end people can watch this discussion and then come to their own conclusion.
So this is actually really curious. I'm a bit surprised that he phrased it quite like that. So again, like I said, I was a pretty big David Whitehead fan. I wouldn't say huge fan, but I liked where he was coming from in terms of, not blindly believing corrupt authorities. Now, he kind of took the opposite position here because he's basically saying, he wants to bring it to have the other side. Now, would it technically be the side of the corrupt scientism establishment pretending to be scientific just for the sake of having the other side? I mean, that's kind of a weird stance because if you're just about truth, which David Whitehead purported to be in everything I've ever seen him in other than this now with this opening. So I find that kind of curious that he would phrase it like that, as if you need to have an opposite side just for the sake of it. Why not just objectively, logically, neutrally follow the scientific method, logically examine something without the need for jumping to a side or presenting it? I mean, there could be many different sides. Some people don't believe in either of these two models. So do you really need somebody just representing 10 different sides of 10 different models just for the sake of it? Why not just follow the evidence wherever it leads and logically examine something without taking a position for the sake of taking a position? I mean, that's the problem with a lot of these debates and in modern society in general and the rise of the cult of scientism. Now, David Whitehead, I don't know if he's technically calls himself an anarchist or whatever, but he's technically not into authority worship. I mean, he's all about, personal responsibility, personal accountability, living life, according to your moral code, not blindly following orders. So as far as I know, I'm not an expert in David Whitehead. I've seen maybe, 10, 20 podcasts with him in the past a while ago on the Unslaved podcast. I don't know if that's even still a thing, but before that all got paywalled and membership-only website and taken off of YouTube. I don't know if it's still on YouTube. But I don't know. I just haven't listened to it in a while. But they had really interesting guests, really interesting viewpoints. And I don't remember Whitehead vehemently just jumping sides or taking any positions on anything, simply advocating for the pursuit of truth and open-minded, non-dogmatic approaches. Now here it's kind of weird. He's saying he's become obsessed with flat earth debates. Why? I mean, that's a curiosity in and of itself. So, do people think he's a shill? I actually haven't seen claims of people claiming that Whitehead is a shill, but who knows? I don't know. Let's continue here.
That's all I want to do.
And what's your position? I don't actually know anybody's position, so.
Well, I'm going to state it in the show, but I do not agree at all with the flat earth premise. I don't think that that's the case. I believe the earth is spherical, and I believe there's many ways to prove it without relying on NASA or even complex science or mathematics.
You confident?
I'm very confident. I've done it myself. And I think it comes down to a debate about perspective and how people see the world. And so one thing I'd like to open up with, now that doesn't mean I'm going to come out and be like, flat earth is bullshit. I'm not into that. I don't want it to be like a dumpster fire here, but I want to basically be like, here's the arguments to counter the claims that are being made, right? And then,
I mean, this is really weird. Just, again, I don't know how much he's changed since the old Unslaved podcast days. I mean, this was years ago when the Unslaved podcast first started. So, I don't know. I haven't followed him since then. I don't know what he's been up to or how his mentality has possibly changed since then. But it's weird that he's always thinking in terms of counters instead of just what is the truth. Like, let's get to the truth. What is or isn't fallacious? How do we get to the truth? So just, and also the egotistical phrasing of that was a little bit alarming for a supposed humble martial arts guy that Whitehead is supposed to be. So, I mean, not a good sign here, but let's see how it plays out.
It's not up to me to say what the final result is. That's up to everybody watching. So, yeah, that's it. I just want to know the truth.
I see.
And I'm also very curious.
Cool. I asked if you're confident because you said, I believe there's plenty of proof.
Oh, you're going to call me on every word, eh?
No, not at all. I don't know you, so I don't know how to take your timbre or your wording of things. So I'm just getting a gauge of that beforehand.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's a fair one. No. Yeah. Outside of being able to obviously see, because I believe flat earth is unfalsifiable in many ways, right? Which is why there isn't really an actual flat earth model. It's more of mostly an argument against the claims of science and the last 2,000 years of astronomy and all that stuff, right? So it's just...
Wow. Not a good sign at all. So is this a case, if you haven't checked out the MINDSHOCK podcast on blind spots, check that out, because I talk about how there's a lot of really highly intelligent people, even so-called conspiracy theorists, aka critical thinkers, if you will, who they know all about, they're very aware of government corruption and how all of that works, but they do have their trigger areas and their blind spots where in the past... Again, I'm not claiming that I'm not making any claims in either directions about so-called injections, let's call them. And it was actually woke. I talk about this a lot. A lot of people don't know this. The woke term was co-opted by the establishment and these corrupt profiteers and social engineers. Originally, woke was actually a conspiracy theorist term. If you were woke, that means you were awake to government corruption and all of these conspiracies and otherwise. And then there was also within that, there's a certain subset. It was actually a pretty popular meme years and years ago. It was called diet woke, where it's like you believe all of these, that the government would be corrupt and steal money and cover up, Gulf of Tonkin, all this stuff. They would do all that, but for whatever reason, they would never under any terms lie about any kind of injections or any of that. Like, it's a valid point, because if you really believe Big Pharma is completely corrupt and government is completely corrupt about everything, but magically there's just this exemption in this area of injections, it's a weird thing, and they were considered diet woke. And there were a lot of memes about being diet woke. Again, I am not claiming anything is true or untrue, but that was just the terminology years and years ago, and then the entire word woke got co-opted. And so now it's basically the opposite of conspiracy theorists, critical thinkers. So anyway, all the arguments Whitehead is making now, like all these thousands of years of astronomy, like this is kind of weird, because hearing him talk on the Unslaved podcast was all about how the ancients, before the modern age of everything, how the ancients had all of this legitimate knowledge, and then it was lost, and then modern society is so terrible, and, the cult of authority worship and all these things. He's also using the word science instead of scientism, which is a little bit weird too. I thought Whitehead knew the differences. So, yeah, this is a little weird hearing him speak like this, but again, maybe we'll all learn something. So let's continue on.
A matter of analyzing it to see if there's anything there and offering the rebuttals that are out there and that we know of and see how they hold up. That's what science is. We're doing science right now. We're doing what they should have done with this vaccine, with all this other shit. So I'm with you guys. See, I'm different than your average, the average guys you guys usually debate, which come from a strict materialistic scientific worldview. I don't hold that view. So I agree with you guys on a lot of points. I agree that NASA is not the most trustworthy agency in the world, but I disagree that it's 100% lies. And I agree on many of the different conspiracies. That's actually my expertise. I've studied the world of the occult and the secret societies and history, alternative history, religion, philosophy, all these different things. So I'm definitely a conspiracy realist, and I understand that. But to me, that doesn't equate to the change in the shape of the planet. That's just my position.
Now, when he says change from what? The ancient flat Earth cosmology that changed to the spherical heliocentric globe cosmology? It's kind of weird. You know what would be awesome if Michael Cyron was on this podcast as well?
But you'd say you're into science.
Yeah, I'm into it to agree. I'm no scientist. I'm no expert. I have no degrees. I was homeschooled. I'm self-taught. And I believe in the scientific method.
Okay, cool. That's a good start.
Science... Sorry?
That's a good start. What's the scientific method?
I have to actually praise Nathan Oakley here, because this is what all debates or discussions should start with. Because, for example, in our current Dunning-Kruger champion, Michael Sartain, I'm not confident that Sartain could even define science or the scientific method based on his argumentation. They should also just start off with just 5 basic fallacies, like appeal to authority, false cause, false dichotomy. I mean, just the common ones, red herring, straw man, etc. Because Whitehead already made a few with, or appeal to extremes. NASA's 100% lies. Are flat earthers claiming that NASA's 100% lies? Because clearly they are at Devon Island. They are doing testing on Earth. They are building some kind of shuttles. They are involved in a lot of technology that is real, legitimate, and can be empirically verified. I've never heard a flat earther claim 100% of everything NASA does is a lie. I've actually known people who worked for NASA. So it's nowhere near 100%. They're saying maybe 100% of the footage of the moon landing, the ISS, maybe 100% of the footage on Mars, but that's not 100% of what all of NASA does. And already, not good signs for Whitehead here.
Well, to form a hypothesis, to observe, to make observations, and then to provide evidence for a theory or a thesis where other people can repeat the experiment, and that you present a model where you can actually make predictions that end up proving your observation to be true or false.
Yeah, I mean, this obsession with predictions, you see this all the time with scientism cultists. And I'm not saying Whitehead is an all-out scientism cultist, but clearly he has some traits of one. So what I would say is one of the most important things when defining the scientific method, what separates an experiment from being truly scientifically valid and not? That is, of course, the clear delineation of dependent variables, independent variables, and controls. Emphasis on controls. This is what prevents false cause-logical fallacies, because you have to clearly define these variables and clearly define the control, so that way you can see whether your experiment actually proved what it purported to. Because if the result is for a different reason than one thinks, then the experiment is not necessarily scientifically valid. Not all scientific experiments are valid. This, of course, is tied to the appeal to authority logical fallacy, genetic logical fallacy, where, people magically say, scientists. Obviously, they mean scientism priests. Just because an experiment is reported and done doesn't mean it's scientific. Just because it's called a scientific experiment doesn't make it so. And this point is, for whatever reason, lost on so many goofs out there. So they should have... I don't know if Nathan Thompson's going to do it. I don't know if Nathan Oakley's going to do it right here. He should, obviously. To point out the difference between a scientifically valid experiment and a scientifically invalid experiment. And just ask this basic question. If you don't account for controls, how would you know what was the variable that acted upon whatever you're trying, the other variable, and you proved what you were purporting to prove, and the controls demonstrated that it was definitely that variable. Therefore, your so-called conclusion that you build a theory on is actually valid. because I've never seen that done in any flat earth debate. And that would solve literally countless hours of problems, because most of these debates are just endless ramblings from goofs who don't understand the very basics of the scientific method. And also the obsession with predictions, again, that's a weird thing. So again, if Whitehead really is as well studied as he says he is on these ancient cosmologies, they all perfectly predicted eclipses so far into the future. I mean, the Mayans predicted our modern eclipses in the 90s. So, I mean, this level of goofery where you hallucinate that predictions somehow equate to truth. I mean, so-called psychics remember back in the day when fairs were more popular, like the fair comes to town, and they had like the mini psychic booth set up at like some kind of county fair. And, so some of these psychics, I'm not claiming they're not really psychic, maybe they are, but there's also a lot of frauds out there. That is a fact. I'm not going to fall for false dichotomies. There's not one or two frauds. You could argue the majority, over 90% of so-called psychics, might be frauds. Is there anyone out there thinking that less than 50% of purported psychics are frauds? Because, I mean, there's a lot of frauds out there. It's not one or two. There's a lot. And some of them, even though they're frauds, they just can guess really well. They can predict really well. So that's why it's always so silly when people just cling desperately as if... And Austin Whitsitt actually addressed this very well. Before any debate, both the parties on all sides of the debate should be asked, is a post-diction the same thing as a prediction? Because post hoc logical fallacies, you're reverse engineering the result to fit the answer, also related to circular reasoning logical fallacies, which again, if you don't have controls, that's the problem. You end up with false causes. And then you make post-dictions where you make the result fit the theory. So if David Whitehead here doesn't even know what a post hoc logical fallacy is or a false cause logical fallacy is, he shouldn't even bring up predictions, because that's all fallacious. All right, let's continue.
False. So it's the process of forming a theory, bringing evidence against it to test it, and constantly remaining open if new evidence comes across your desk to change the result of that hypothesis.
So now he's talking about remaining open, whereas at the very beginning of the opening, he was just like, yeah, I want to present the other side. What happened to just being open to the truth? Why is there a desperate need to present a side? Is that scientific?
They don't know what science is then.
Okay, you tell me then.
All right. So we're getting off to a bad start here.
No, I want him to do it, Patrick. Go ahead. Come on, let's go, Nathan. Tell me what science is.
Science is the establishment of cause and effect based on a naturally observed phenomena by way of formulation of a hypothesis. So hypothesis...
That's what I said. Observing phenomena,
my bad.
forming a hypothesis.
My bad. Do you not want to know?
Yeah.
Do you not want to know?
Sorry?
Do you not want to know?
Do I not want to know?
Yeah, I was in the middle of telling you.
Are you telling me that
wants to be
making
able to say it
observations
without
with a
being interrupted.
hypothesis is not science?
Making observations with hypothesis. What's a hypothesis?
Or sorry, making observations in order to form a hypothesis.
What's
so
a
right
hypothesis
now,
then? You tell me.
It's a theory. It's you're
wrong.
going, okay, I want to know what the shape of the
That's
Earth
wrong.
is, so I'm
That's
going
wrong.
to make some tests.
It's wrong.
I'm going to make observations.
It's incorrect.
And I'm going to try to prove with data that I collect as to whether or not those observations actually line up with objective reality.
Yeah, I got that the first time. And I said, so you don't know what science is then? Then I started telling you.
So this is why people don't like Nathan Oakley, because he's some people might say I'm obnoxious, but it's almost like he's going out of his way to be obnoxious. I'm just stating what I believe to be true. Yes, I find Dunning-Kruger stylings hilarious, but Nathan Oakley is being intentionally, aggressively obnoxious right off the open when David Whitehead had been nothing but polite. He might be completely wrong about everything, but he was so polite, and Nathan Oakley just fired back, literally laughing in his face, so you don't know then. I mean, see, people accuse me of being impolite. Like, I respond to people in kind. If David Whitehead had been obnoxious to him in his, while stating what he believed science is, then there'd be absolutely no problem with Nathan Oakley responding in kind. No problem at all. I mean, that's kind of what I do on social media. All these triggered Dunning-Kruger goofs start, spamming ad homs, etc. I respond in kind. There's no issue with that. And I know Nathan Oakley does that to people who deserve it, yes. But David Whitehead here was so polite, there was no reason for that. And that's why a lot of people don't like Nathan Oakley. I can't blame them. I'm not a fan of Nathan Oakley either, just for not just this reason, but obviously he's very narcissistic as well. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean he's wrong, but yeah, just the point there. I know some devout Nathan Oakley worshippers are probably going to get pissed at that, but whatever. Again, I call it how I see it.
Well, I'm telling you what I think science is.
It's wrong.
I'm not saying that the scientific institutions
It's wrong.
are all ponies and rainbows on that front.
Nathan,
But
Okay.
Nathan, if I can.
it's the process of studying nature and trying to find out what the truth is about nature, trying to find out what the truth about reality really is. It's the investigative process.
I mean, I don't know why Nathan Oakley's that triggered. I mean, David Whitehead is not really wrong. You can nitpick slight shades of definitions, but sciencecouncil.org has a pretty good definition of sciences. Science is the pursuit and application of knowledge and understanding of the natural and social world following a systematic methodology based on evidence. Now, obviously, Whitehead didn't delineate the methodology super precisely, measuring using objective observations and measurement and data. But I mean, he kind of said, the context was there. I mean, he's not really incorrect. And Nathan Oakley just spamming incorrect, interrupting him while he's saying that not only is that completely obnoxious behavior, but it doesn't add anything, because he could have literally waited 10 seconds for Whitehead to finish and then say exactly what he was going to say. Again, this is why people don't like Nathan Oakley. He's completely obnoxious, like unnecessarily obnoxious. Now, to certain people, like goofs like Professor Dave, that would be entirely appropriate behavior. But to a guy like Whitehead, in this scenario, I don't believe it's that appropriate, and it's not a good look. It doesn't make one seem more intelligent. In fact, it makes one seem less so. But let's continue here.
Let me go ahead and just answer, because David, I think you're obviously on the right track here. It is the establishment of cause and effect of a naturally occurring phenomenon by experimentation. So you form a hypothesis after you observe a natural phenomenon, and then your hypothesis is the independent variable, the thing that you think caused the phenomenon. And then the researcher goes about manipulating that independent variable in order to see if by that experiment he can cause the dependent variable, also known as the
Phenomenon.
The observed phenomenon.
Okay, so again, it's not like there's only one definition of science. Yes, that is also correct to some level, but not necessarily, because science is the methodology. You can't always manipulate variables. For example, if you're making claims about astronomy, like the shape of the Earth, how many planets, whatever, it's not like you can be outside of the system and just move planets around to change gravity and stuff. Yeah, you can build a very small scale model, but it's not exactly the same thing. So, but yeah, all of these definitions fall into the realm of science, so it's kind of hard to say. I don't want to get into too much semantics, but Nathan Oakley just spamming incorrect, that would be fallacious. You could also say you can also say that's kind of like a no true Scotsman logical fallacy, and just constantly play with these definitions, and it's it's not a good look for Nathan Oakley. I am glad this podcast, this debate was recommended. Let's go to the Webster definition. I like this one. Science, noun, knowledge or a system of knowledge covering general truths or the operation of general laws, especially as obtained and tested through scientific method. That's, 1A, 1B, such knowledge or such a system of knowledge concerned with the physical world and its phenomena. So basically, it's a tool. It's a tool. There's another definition here, the state of knowing, knowledge as distinguished from ignorance or misunderstanding. So Nathan Oakley pretending he has the monopoly on the definition of science, that's fallacious. That's fallacious. And it's not, what Whitehead said was perfectly in alignment with a general definition of science. So let's continue.
So your description isn't exactly what the textbooks would say the scientific method is, but
I'm not here to talk about just the textbooks because I'm not a scientist. I don't have a PhD. I'm telling you what I think the process of truth is, especially when it relates to discovering what the shape of this planet is and what the nature of reality is, right?
Okay,
so
but you said you were into science.
Every time you investigate, okay, think of it as a crime scene. You're trying to solve a murder, right? You're going to observe the murder as the phenomena, then you're going to make a hypothesis about how you think the murder happened, and that's that whole process of gathering data. And then it's about eliminating what's not true in order to come to the only possibility left, which is the truth.
Okay, that's not science. So, that's not science. You don't know what science is. I mean,
okay,
that's the bottom line.
Well, we're going to be very strict. Okay,
hold on. You asked me what I'm here to do, what I'm here to argue, and what I think the scientific method is, right?
Yeah, and you don't know what it is.
It's repeatable experiments observing a phenomena, right? So you have to have first a hypothesis, a theory. You're like, I'm trying to study how plants grow.
It's wrong,
right? You have to weigh evidence against that to see if your theory is correct. And
again, I think this is a no true Scotsman fallacy. I wouldn't jump to just spamming it's wrong. I mean, to say he got it slightly out of order, I mean, the gist of what he's saying and the point he's making is correct. I mean, let's go to, Encyclopedia Britannica. I would say this definition of the scientific method is accurate. Mathematical and experimental technique employed in the sciences. More specifically, it is the technique used in the construction and testing of a scientific hypothesis. The process of observing, asking questions, and seeking answers through tests and experiments is not unique to any one field of science. In fact, the scientific method is applied broadly in science across many different fields. The scientific method is critical to the development of scientific theories which explain empirical, experiential laws in a scientifically rational manner. In a typical application of the scientific method, a researcher develops a hypothesis, tests it through various means, then modifies the hypothesis on the basis of the outcomes of the tests and experiments. And of course, the experiments have to be scientifically valid with, independent variable, dependent variable control. It doesn't state that here in Britannica, but I'm just expanding upon it. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to give a strict definition of extremely strict steps, I mean, even, again, depending on where you look, these definitions are not, I wouldn't argue that they're ironclad. I mean, yeah, if you go to like Science 101, Science Buddies, you ask a question first, do background research, then construct a hypothesis, then test with experiment. But again, as Britannica even lays out, you could just come up with a hypothesis first if you wanted to. That wouldn't make it, like these strict steps, like if something is scientifically valid, it's scientifically valid. I mean, you're really getting into the semantics and no true Scotsman games when you're saying, oh, you're not allowed to do this step first or second. I mean, when you do all of the work and then you construct, like, who really cares if you come up with your theory before making an observation? That doesn't matter because you haven't proven anything. So whichever one you do first, after you do the experiments, and if you have clearly defined dependent variables and controls and can repeat the experiments, then at the end, when you make a conclusion, you can see whether it was scientifically valid or not. So them arguing over the exact steps and exact definitions. I mean, on one hand, we've never really seen this in a debate before. So it is kind of interesting to see it now. But yeah, I mean, I'm not impressed with this from Oakley because it's you're playing semantics games. And this is no true Scotsman. So, because it doesn't really affect the point of whether any kind of conclusion is scientifically valid or not.
If you bring the proper data forward,
keep saying it. It's the third time you've said it.
You'll be able to. Are you going to keep interrupting me?
Because you keep saying it. You've said it. I've heard it 3 times, and you're wrong. I've heard it 3 times. You're saying that you're testing a theory. That's wrong. So I can hear it 4 times.
We're not going to test the theory.
It's wrong. It's incorrect.
Hey, Josh, we're already off.
Wait, what's up, man? I just heard about what is the theory. So let me ask the. I'm sorry. What was his name?
Nathan.
Nathan. How you doing, Nathan? I'm Josh. How we doing?
Nice to meet you, Josh. Good to be here.
Nice to meet you too.
He was asking me what the scientific method was, and he didn't like my answer.
It's just wrong.
What is the scientific method?
The scientific method is the establishment of cause and effect reasoning based on a naturally observed phenomena that you want to know what caused it. And that's done through the establishment of a hypothesis, which is a supposition of the cause of an effect you're studying in nature. Now, hypothesis.
So how did I not say that?
My bad.
Right.
A hypothesis has got two sides. One is the alternative, which is if A, then B. So if you vary A, you will cause B. B being the thing you're studying, the thing in nature you want to know the cause of. Now, it's also got something called
let me ask you this:
it's also got a null. It's also got a null, which is
how do you test the hypothesis?
That's what I was
well, if I could tell you what it was, maybe we could get to how I'm going to test it, but I haven't told you what it is yet. I'm in the middle of telling you.
You're here to test. You guys are here, and we're here to test each other's hypothesis.
You don't know what a hypothesis is? Okay, you tell me what a hypothesis is. I was halfway.
Wow, I mean, this is a train wreck that we haven't seen before. Because, I mean, Nathan Oakley's kind of a goof here. Because these semantics games don't matter. Because if it's scientifically valid and you do have the control dependent independent variable, like this is all nonsense. Let's break it down and keep it simple. I mean, a hypothesis is simply a supposition or proposed explanation made on the basis of limited evidence as a starting point for further investigation. A proposition made as a basis for reasoning without any assumption of its truth. And then that's a very important point because there's no bias here. If you're being scientific, you're not being like, let's say, Eddington was with Einstein's theory of relativity and all that nonsense where he's trying to prove Einstein correct. No. You come up with a hypothesis, you don't know whether it's true or not. You don't have a preference. You just objectively follow the scientific method to get to a determination the best you can with obviously fallible human technology. But I mean, this train wreck, I'm actually kind of happy that this debate was recommended because it is unique in nature. We haven't seen something quite like this before. But yeah, I mean, David Whitehead was not technically wrong. I mean, it's basically splitting hairs at this point because there's a few different definitions for science. There's a few, I mean, everything kind of falls within this realm where, I mean, it's all under the umbrella of correct. They're all correct with their statements here, even though they're slightly different.
Through telling you, and you asked me how we test it, you tell me what it is, given that I've just got halfway through telling you what it is.
No, I agree with you. I'm just
I didn't finish telling you.
Okay, I guess you didn't.
I didn't finish. I didn't. I was asked how we test it before I explained what it was.
Okay, guys, let me say something. If we're going to, how are we going to do this? Do we want this to be something that's going to benefit
a shit
the audience?
show, or do we want it to be
because here's the question. Is the Earth the shape of a sphere, or is it a flat plane, right? Like, what's the shape of the planet? So now we're both going to present evidence.
Whitehead didn't say flat was a shape. He said the shape of a sphere or flat. He didn't say what shape it is, sphere or flat. The shape only referred to the sphere, but even if we do go to, again, he didn't say one of the clearly identified geometric shapes. What context was he using the word shape in? Again, this isn't rocket science. Shape, noun, the visible makeup characteristic of a particular item or kind of item. B1, spatial form or contour. 2, a standard or universally recognized spatial form, like a circle, whatever, sphere. So again, we have several different definitions here. Is David Whitehead wrong? Of course not. But even if you're using a strict definition, he's still not wrong because he only referred to the sphere as the shape. Nathan Oakley, for a guy that gets triggered when others don't listen closely, I mean, he doesn't seem to even give one iota of a crap about listening closely to Whitehead.
To back up what we think the answer is.
Okay, flat's not a shape.
That's what we're here to do. We're not here to jump on every single word and try to dissect it and all that shit, okay?
So this is what I really, really hope for this debate, Nathan, and I hope that you'll join me in that. Even when they say stuff that's wrong, that we regard as wrong, I'd like to let everybody finish. So we're going to have opening statements, this, that, and the other. We're going to err on the side of letting people finish sentences. And gentlemen, I really hope that goes for you as well.
Oh, 100%.
I even noticed you guys kind of talking over each other. For the purposes of this, I would appreciate it if we could all just really work hard not to interrupt each other's sentences. And that really, really helps, because a lot of times the answer to your question is going to be at the end of what somebody is saying. So when Nathan was in the middle of explaining what a hypothesis is, he hadn't gotten to the end of what a hypothesis is before you asked him how you test a hypothesis. And the fact that you did that indicates to me that maybe you weren't really listening to what he said. So we're going to work real hard today to listen to each other and just really internalize what each other is saying. And we are all guilty of not doing that sometimes, myself included. But for the purposes of this, I really want us all, every last one of us, to not interrupt, if at all possible, all four of us.
This is actually the first time I've seen the globe earthers actually come off better and less triggered than the flat earthers. Even though we're just starting here, I mean, that's just my initial observation. I actually don't think anybody's really been wrong yet. So let's, I mean, fallacies on both sides, but no, I don't think anybody's actually been completely wrong about any definitions here to the point where it would actually matter.
And that's it.
I agree, Patrick. And
so
let me
for
just
the
add
sake
one
of
thing,
time,
if I could.
go ahead, David.
Sorry, just one more thing. As another part of that, that means we can't go on long monologues where nobody gets to say anything, right? So to not, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Hypothesis.
So, ideally,
explanation of phenomena.
Gotcha. Ideally, repeating the same incorrect assertion about what science is 3 times through the top of me, that's not ideal.
Well, what science is? It's the explanation, right? It's how we try to rationalize and explain nature, natural phenomena.
Okay,
right?
guys, we're going to start the show now.
We got to start the show. Nathan,
let's start the show. There's a few minute little intro. So here's how it's going to go. I'm going to just open it up, say welcome everybody. And then we're going to, Josh, I just let everybody know I'm going to go to Patrick.
Are we bringing Nathan in?
Yep. Nathan,
he'll be in. He's just off cam right now.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I'm going to go Patrick, opening statement, introduction. Then I'm going to go Nathan. Then I'm going to go you. And then we're going to have a free flow, and God help us all. Sound good? Okay, here we go.
Indeed. Let's see how this train wreck proceeds.
All right, here we are. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Earth Chronicles. This is episode 6, and we are doing it. We're going there, guys. We are going to have a debate about flat Earth, the shape of the planet, and all that good stuff. It is by popular demand, and this is why we're doing it. And we're hoping to have a very interesting, fun, and polite discussion about this subject. And I would like to really thank everybody for being here. Thanks for sharing this out. And I just want to say real quick, first of all, my name is David. If you haven't seen my work, you can find all my work at dwtruthwarrior.com. And we are going to be talking about a subject that I've been curious about since around 2014. I've been following this for many years now, collecting arguments, listening to debates, doing my own observations, and just thinking about it. And I'd like to see what the other opinions are about this. And so I'm really happy to be here. And I think what we're going to do for this is we're going to go around and do a little introduction, sort of an opening statement, stating our positions. And then we're going to have a free flow. And we're going to do our very best to bring concise arguments to you, the audience, so that you can make up your own mind. I'm not a person that likes to say we have to make declarative statements on any of this stuff. I have my opinion. My guests here have their opinions, and you watching have your opinions. And we're all trying to learn together. And the hope here is that when we compare notes, we can keep a good, peaceful dialogue about these subjects so that we can get to the truth, because that's really all that matters in the end. That's the goal. And so I'm really excited for this. This is going to be great.
That's quite a different opening than he said before. I guess this is the official start of the show. But in the start of the stream, that's not what he said. He said he was specifically trying to give some kind of a counter position as opposed to find the truth. So I really don't know what to make of him at this point. But
so I'd like to open up first by passing this over to Patrick. I'm honored to have him here. He's a real staple on this network. I'd like to thank Badlands Media, of course, for hosting this and bringing us all here. And Patrick, I've been following you for a while, doing some great work with John, great work on your own podcast. And so welcome to Earth Chronicles, man. Open it up.
Thank you so much, David. Josh, nice to meet you as well. Nathan, nice to have you in the corner there, and been watching your work forever now, and so it's nice to finally be broadcasting right alongside you. Those of you who don't know me, my name's Patrick Gunnels, and I'm a warrior in the truth war, and I started pretty much right after the election of Donald J. Trump, when I discovered that things didn't quite make sense in how our institutions were behaving. And eventually, after uncovering enough lies from my own institutions, whether they be the educational system, whether they're the media, and a million different other things, I made a commitment to myself that I was only going to accept things that I could verify for myself. And that took me on quite a journey. And then it took me to the heliocentric model. And I learned that the heliocentric model is essentially the most successful religion in world history. And it started
I don't know about that. Statism has been quite the religion.
whenever it started, but when it was started, it was based on a few cosmological precepts. One, that we live on a sphere of roughly 3,959 statute miles. That sphere is rotating at the equator at approximately a speed of 1,037 miles per hour. And third, that the sky above us is a vacuum. And those three precepts are something that I was never, under any circumstances, no matter how hard I tried, able to find any verifiable evidence that I myself could determine. Not one single thing. We weren't able to find any curvature. We weren't able to find any evidence for axial rotation. We weren't able to find any evidence that you could have this air that we breathe immediately adjacent to a vacuum. None of those things are possible. The third thing is something that we can simply disprove by taking a big, deep breath. Because if the sky were immediately adjacent to a vacuum, the air that we breathe would fill that limitless volume of space that we're told is up there, and we would all be dead or never have existed in the first place. There would be things that we would be able to see in our own world if we were rotating at a speed of 1,037 miles per hour at the equator.
I mean, for the first point, that's kind of a false dichotomy there, because who's going to hallucinate that humans know all of the laws of the universe? It wouldn't necessarily mean that. Now, again, the burden of proof is on positive claims. So if one were to claim that, they would have to prove it. So I'm not suggesting anybody believe that model. But to go to this false dichotomy where it would magically mean this or that, not necessarily. There could be many different possibilities and many as of yet undiscovered variables.
And finally, every distance to horizon on a sphere of radius 3,959 miles, by simple trigonometric math that you can do yourself on a piece of paper, you would find that any distance to horizon on a sphere of that size could be no more than 1.225 miles times the square root of the observer's height in feet. And I thought maybe they were faking this, so I did the math myself. It is 100% unverifiable. And every single time that a black swan type photo that showed massive distance over water that could not possibly have any convexity, the answer was always, well, the curvature is not shown here because it's hidden by refraction or this reason or that reason. It's like the child with an imaginary friend who says, I know that my imaginary friend is there. And when you say, well, I don't see him, you say, well, he hid in the corner, or, oh, he ran away. And that is the way that the globe defenders appear to behave when asked, why do we find no curvature? And then after that, as you go through the increasing absurdity of the heliocentric religion, you realize this is just another massive, massive lie that we're all guilty of. And it makes us doubt our senses. It separates us from God. It is the alpha hoax. It's the hoax that made all the other hoaxes possible. And I want to get into the details of why we think these things and how we can possibly extricate ourselves from the grip of this delusion. Thank you.
It was a really well done opening statement. Right before we go to you, Nathan, we got a super chat from Patel Patriot.
Look how polite Whitehead is. I mean, well done opening statement. I mean, it was okay. I mean, it wasn't bad. A couple of fallacies there. But yeah, I mean, not bad. A couple of presuppositions, but yeah, no, you gotta admire David Whitehead. He is, I believe he is the new leader for the best globe Earth debater. I believe he has usurped the jet fighter pilot Butel from the Michael Sartain podcast, because that guy barely said anything, even though he committed less fallacies than anybody on the globe side thus far in any debate. But yeah, no, props to David Whitehead here. He is so far the best.
And that's why I was laughing. By the way, I wasn't laughing at Patrick. I just thought it was funny what John's saying here. He goes, "Okay, new Badlands project. We're buying a spaceship to figure out for ourselves once and for all. Also, peaceful debates aren't as entertaining. Take the gloves off, boys. $50. Thanks,
what
John.
You're asking for. Thanks, John.
All right. Well, let's go over to Nathan. Go ahead with your intro, Nathan.
I haven't prepared an intro, so I'm Nathan Oakley. I run a show called Flat Earth Debate on YouTube, which runs daily, and you can join at 2 p.m. UK time to debate the nature of Earth. And I've spent the last 4 or 5 years running that show, debating with people who have a misapprehension about what science is and a general misapprehension that they have scientific evidence to prove that they're on a sphere-shaped model, which is definitely not the case. So yeah, that's my bag in a nutshell. I've not got a great deal to say for an intro, other than subscribe to me at Nathan Oakley 1980, and you can see the Flat Earth debate, or even join if you felt so passionate as the super chatter just did suggest, that rockets can traverse gas pressure, go into an area of volume to take a picture of an Earth as a sphere, and yet the gas which expands in all directions to fill the volume it has available to it isn't expanding into the area that the rocket's going into to take a picture. Those are the sort of things you can hear on Flat Earth Debate on a daily basis. So we run a live public debate on Nathan Oakley 1980. So pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Very cool.
All right. Well done. Well, there's only one way to find out. Josh, go ahead, bro.
Josh Reid with redpills.tv, and I'm here just for the tea. So no, I am. I believe that the Earth is an oblate spheroid. I've had discussions with Flat Earth Dave before. I've had discussions with many different flat earthers before. And, what we're here to do is find out the truth. And I think that there's certain mechanisms within our society that allow us to observe nature and the phenomena that occur. And we can take those and make hypotheses. We can generate theories from those hypotheses. And through observable phenomena and through repeating this process over and over and over and coming up with the same results, we can determine what is real or consistent in our universe and our reality and what is not. And I think that if we weigh those, we can come to the determination that the Earth is not flat and that the Earth is round, or an oblate spheroid. But I guess we're up for a discussion and interpretation. And so let's start it. Let's begin. This will be fun.
Very good, very good. Well, and my intro real quick, well, I kind of did one, but I just wanted to say a thank you to Flat Earth, because my idea is that there's only the best way to learn about something is to learn about its opposite, to have ideas that challenge your worldview, that make you question what you think you know, and that it's helped me learn more about astronomy, about the nature of the planet, and has actually inspired me to learn more about it. So that's my little olive branch over to the Flat Earth community. I also want to say that I appreciate you guys because of the fact that you're challenging a very powerful paradigm in the world, where the scientific institutions, as we've just experienced in the last 3 years, need to be questioned, need to be had their feet held to the fire. And we don't have to have all these PhDs and all these degrees and be part of these major institutions in order to be able to do our own investigation, do our own science. I think it's straight in many ways from the original scientific method at the institutional level. But that being said, I still hold the view that we live on a spherical planet.
That was actually the best statement by a globe earther I've ever heard on any of these debates. Props to David Whitehead. It seems, again, I don't know if this is going to go off the rails and I'm going to completely change everything I'm saying. But as of right now, a guy like David Whitehead, this is the type of guy you need to have on Flat Earth Debates. Because so far, I mean, other than Adam Buell-Tell on the Michael Sartain podcast, he's the only guy that's ever been on a Globe versus Flat Earth debate that I've seen that wasn't triggered. Now, Whitehead and Josh both are not triggered at the moment. It seems like nobody's really triggered. Nathan Oakley was the close to becoming triggered when he kept interrupting and spamming incorrect, while David Whitehead actually technically wasn't even incorrect based on, the variation of definitions. I mean, who's going to claim there's only one valid definition? I mean, obviously, if Whitehead said something completely off base regarding the definition of science, the scientific method, and hypotheses, then yes. But clearly, he's under the umbrella of most definitions.
And that we are not in, or that we actually, there is such thing as space, and we live in an infinite universe, or somewhat infinite. We don't really know, but I think there's more to everything than meets the eye. So relying only on your singular senses without any kind of equipment or any kind of research, it can be limiting. That's just where I'm at. But let's see if these guys can convince me otherwise. So let's just go for it, guys. Maybe Patrick, over to you. What point? Well, we did discuss, actually. Let me know if you're okay with this. In our chat, I had asked it would be a good place to start with motive, because we want to try to establish the motive behind, or at least speculate on the motive as to why this conspiracy would be in play.
No.
You're shaking your head, so you disagree?
No, absolutely,
Go ahead.
absolutely not. We have scientific evidence to examine here. Why liars lie is real. I mean, I'm an educated man, but why the people who control this world have decided to deceive us is something that we could speculate on all day. Nathan and I may talk about that once in a while, but we're just spitballing. What we do know is that there is no evidence of curvature. We do know that there is no evidence of axial rotation. And we do know that the second law of thermodynamics makes it impossible for the sky to be a vacuum. So I'll ask you a question just to see if we can get this started. Do you have any evidence that the horizon is actually the curve of a presupposed spherical Earth?
You asking David or me?
I'm asking
Let's
David.
put it out there. Let's put it out there. Josh, how about you go first? I've got something here I'll pull up, but have you done your own observations? Maybe you should tell them your background in the Navy.
Yeah, I was in the U.S. Navy for 10 years. I've sailed the Pacific, the Atlantic Ocean, to South Pacific, been all around this world on the oceans. Got a few of my old shipmates actually watching right now. The horizon that you see on the ocean is going to be a little bit, I guess, further away than the horizon you're. No, you're not looking at the curvature. And the reason you're not looking at the curvature is because the Earth is really big. And I hate to go to like that Professor Dave dude's kind of way he says that the Earth is really big. Is typically you have every 75 miles is you're going to have 1 degree of curvature, right? Can we agree on that? Every 75 miles on a curved Earth, every 75 miles you're going to have 1 degree of curvature.
No, that's incorrect.
Okay, well, how about this? Then how do you measure curvature?
That's your claim.
No. How does flat earthers say that there's no curvature through this measurement?
But your claim that, okay, you have a claim that there's curvature.
Okay, so here is Nathan Oakley being normal. So, yes, he's in a polite fashion. Notice he toned it down, too. I mean, he's not aggressively barking, incorrect, like he was at the opening. He's calmly stating, it is obviously burden of proof is on positive claims. Because Josh just shifted the burden of proof, which is a logical fallacy. And Nathan Oakley calmly told him that in a normal fashion, which is the way you should conduct yourself. So props for Nathan Oakley here. Hopefully this doesn't go completely off the rails, or maybe hopefully depending on what kind of entertainment value you want from this debate, maybe you are hoping it goes off the rails. We'll see. I mean, if we're trying to be actually scientific and have a logical discussion here, which Whitehead at least has shown that he is capable of thus far. Maybe it'll change, but thus far. So I mean, just because we've never had one before in Flat vs. Globe, I'm kind of hoping this is the one. This is like the one logical, at least semi-polite debate here.
And Patrick's asked, Where's your proof that the horizon's curvature? And you've said it isn't. And then you've given up this
No.
measurement.
What I was trying to say is that when you're looking out there, the curvature is so...
My bad. So you've said that there's
Listen,
curvature at a certain
you-
distance, and you've given us some
You're gonna
mathematics
let
for
me
that
talk as
curvature.
he asked me the
My bad,
question.
still in the middle of the same
she was in
sentence.
the
My
middle of
bad,
the
still in the middle of the
sentence.
same sentence. My bad.
All right, finish the sentence, Nathan, but keep it
I
short.
would
Let's
if
go.
I was allowed to. I'm just not allowed to. it
Oh,
seems.
go ahead.
You're allowed.
You're
Go
fine. We're not in an aggressive platform here. We're very
You've just
open
spoken through me
to
three
have a
times.
discussion.
Three
So-
times you've
so go
spoken through
ahead.
me. Don't tell me you're not aggressive when you've just spoken through me 3 times. I'll
Well,
try
I
and
was
finish the
trying to
same sentence.
extrapolate on something
Still
that
trying
you
to finish
misspoke
the
on what I
same
said.
sentence.
Okay,
That's 4
okay.
times.
Time
Not
out,
an
guys.
aggressive
Nathan.
platform, but you've
Nathan, just finish
consistently
your sentence,
talking
man.
through me. Consistently. That's 4 times. 4 times.
Go ahead.
Don't need to be told to go ahead. Just need to be let to go ahead without you talking through me a 5th time.
Take
So
a
you've
breath,
rattled
man.
off
We're
some
just
numbers.
starting out here. Go ahead
Doesn't seem like I'm getting an opportunity to talk.
and go.
I don't need permission. I just need the people who are interrupting me to not do that. 6th attempt. You've rattled off some numbers for where Earth curve is. Now, given that you're the one in the affirmative position for Earth curve, I'd expect you to know the mathematics for Earth curve. I know them, and Patrick knows them. He even stated them about 3 minutes ago. 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. So it's not a set distance, as you stated. Seems you don't know your own mathematics. So that's not a good start, given it's your affirmative position. I'm not going to be telling you, on your demand, how flat earthers say it doesn't work when you don't know the positive claim for it. You should know. It's your claim.
Okay, so 1.22 times the observer's height. Where does this formula
No,
come
that's
from?
wrong.
Okay, well, what you just said there. So, Patrick, what was the formula that you had said?
I just gave it you.
1.225
1.22 times the square
Just
root
talk.
of the observer's height in
let
feet.
Patrick talk. Let Patrick talk. You're interrupting him.
Why? I was giving you
Patrick,
the
go ahead.
answer and you didn't repeat it back. Is it
But I
that you
asked
don't want to
Patrick,
communicate with
not
me?
you.
I've given it you.
Dude,
You haven't repeated it back
This is
and
not
you've
going
thrown
to
it to
work if we
Patrick.
keep on with this.
Don't
You
get
told me
this.
Patrick said it, so I went back to Patrick to get what he was saying. Okay, Patrick, can you please tell me the formula that you guys use and in that where this came from?
on a sphere
Mhm.
of radius 3,959 miles.
Mhm.
Any distance to horizon can be no more than 1.225 miles times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That is not 1 degree for every 75 miles.
So, but where did that come from? I'm just curious where that formulation
All right.
came from.
Didn't you
Okay,
know?
I will explain.
Thank you.
I will explain. Okay. You take a cross section, the largest cross section of that sphere,
Mhm.
and then you draw a radius going all the way to the surface. Then you draw a right triangle out. And then all you have to do is use 3959 as the radius, and then the height of the pointy end of that right triangle then has the height over the surface of the Earth. What that height is determines how tall the object must be for you to be able to see it from the distance of that first leg of that triangle. And I even have a chart that's like made by Globe Math.
Cool. Yeah, pull it up. I'd like to see it.
All right, one moment.
Why? Why are we doing this? This is your claim. Aren't we here to defend flat Earth? Why are we having to make your claim for you?
Well, because
So, okay, the thing is, Nathan Oakley can say the same thing without this just bonkers, obnoxious methodology. Like, Patrick is being perfectly civil in these clear, concise explanations. Oakley's it's like he's being unnecessarily aggressive, which is taking away from, again, a civil, logical, objective, neutral debate. Now, correct, Josh, I mean, it is kind of embarrassing that Josh doesn't even know the basics of spherical trigonometry. I mean, if you're gonna be on this kind of platform, I'm curious as to whether David Whitehead knows this. I mean, it is kind of embarrassing, but in Josh's defense, not logical or scientific defense, in his defense, it doesn't seem like he's playing stupid. It doesn't seem like he's intentionally being intellectually dishonest like so many other people in these debates. Now, if he does have some kind of mental disability, obviously he shouldn't be on this type of debate, but there's no reason to be unnecessarily hostile to a guy with a mental disability.
That is a good point.
Well, because what I'm trying to say is that I haven't heard that formula before. The formula that I have for the measuring the curvature of the Earth is completely different. I remember when I was on a different show with another flat earther, and they told me that I think it's what, for 1 mile, you have 8 inches of drop that you should have, or 8 inches of drop, something of that nature. And
it's important. It would be important to know. So
absolutely.
One. Yeah. So let me give you the
Mhm.
if you were to reverse the algebra, then you could make it that the curvature over any given distance d in miles is 2/3 of a foot, or 8 inches, times the miles times the miles. So over 1 mile, the curvature would be 1 times 1, which is 1, times 8 inches. 8 inches of curvature over 1 mile.
Mhm.
Over 2 miles, 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 8 inches, 32 inches. And that math gets worse and worse as the number of miles increases.
Right.
There is a website called the Distance to Horizon Calculator. So it does all the math for you, and it does the math correctly. You know, Nathan refers to it as the, well, what do you call the?
I call it the begging the
Horizon
question.
calculator?
Begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator. This is the 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. This is your claim of Earth curve at the horizon.
No, that formula is not my claim of
it is.
curvature.
Yeah, it is. That's the claim of Earth curvature.
The claim.
No, that's not my claim.
Sorry, are we debating you?
Listen, Nathan, you're putting words into my mouth.
That's the claim of Earth curve.
Stop trying to straw man this
My
argument
bad.
here.
It's like telling a
Okay.
Christian that they don't believe in Jesus. That's Earth curve. That's your maths for Earth curve. You don't have to like it. It's yours.
Okay, this is getting kind of funny just because Josh is getting triggered here. Because he was being polite until now, now he's getting triggered. So here's what's funny, though. It is Josh's claim, he's just too dumb to understand it. Because if Josh believes in the establishment numbers for the size of the Earth, and if he believes that math exists, then it is his claim. He just doesn't know it's his claim. So I actually can't fault Nathan Oakley here, because this level of goofery that Josh is exhibiting, I mean, I would call this a relatively proportional response by Nathan Oakley. I mean, he obviously could still be nicer about it, because, I mean, clearly Josh looks like he has some kind of mental disability, but it doesn't look like he's being intentionally intellectually dishonest, though. I believe that should give him some credit points. Because it's not like he's a goof like so-called Professor Dave or that McToon goof. Even though he has a mental disability, he's clearly just being intentionally obnoxious. Josh doesn't look like he's being intentionally obnoxious. It looks like he has a genuine mental disability, and he's just doing the best he can. He is getting triggered about it, but still, I mean, you could still be nice to this poor guy.
No, because what we're actually talking about when you're talking about the curvature of the Earth is what I'm seeing here is that you guys are looking at a horizontal plane and expecting this horizontal plane to have a certain curvature at the end. But what we're really talking about is an arc over this distance over time. Yes, that's what we're talking about in the sense of Earth. And if you measure this correctly, you should see about 1 degree for the 3,900 mile radius of the Earth, about 1 degree of curvature every 75 miles. The Earth is very, very large. And so when we're looking at something going over the horizon and it begins to disappear, the reason we're seeing this is because it's not going over it's not going over 1% of the Earth's curve right there.
This is kind of weird. What does he mean by degrees? Because is he stacking a presupposition on top of a presupposition? I mean, we haven't seen this level of silliness when it comes to curvature calculation yet. I mean, Josh is leading the pack in cluelessness when it comes to curvature. Because degrees would if you're presupposing a sphere and then hallucinating this amount of degree drop-off. I mean, can we use at least empirical measurement like a foot? Because nobody's disputing a foot is still a foot. If a foot is 12 inches, if everybody's agreeing on these measurements, I don't know if anybody's disputing this. Is anybody disputing that 12 inches would be 12 inches on a flat plane? And 12 inches would be 12 inches on a globe. Same thing with feet or yards, any kind of empirically verifiable measure. This guy is hallucinating you can ascribe a degree to a presupposed shape. I mean, the fallacy stacked by Josh, I am impressed. I have to say I am impressed. I do feel bad for him because he's clearly got some kind of mental disability where he can't even grasp basics. I mean, but it's not like he's being intentionally obnoxious here, so hopefully they can still be nice to him.
One of a very small, minute portion of that. This is why we can see longer distances in some things, because we have atmospheric conditions that present themselves.
So that made no sense whatsoever. Meanwhile, you have laid down in...
That.
My bad, I was only replying for 10 seconds. What you said made absolutely no sense. It's not my claim, but I understand not yours, the globe claim, and that is not it. So you don't understand. I don't know why I'm here. You don't know.
What's the formula?
My bad.
For...
My bad.
What is the formula?
My bad.
No, Nathan,
my bad.
Dude,
I'm in the middle of a sentence.
And you've already interrupted me 3 times.
Have I? I waited for a gap. You're in the middle of talking through me, and you're accusing me of talking through you. I'm still in the middle of my sentence.
Do you know
so far, every single time I've spoken on this show, you have spoken through me. So, given that our opponent, Patrick, doesn't know their own claim and has just laid down the most nonsensical, incorrect nonsense about how Earth curve maths works, I don't really know what I'm doing here. He doesn't know his own claim, and he's claiming that I'm talking through him while I'm refuting the total nonsense he just spewed about Earth curve maths, which is incorrect. Not right. Wrong.
Can I share this screen? All right. So let me see if can I share this one?
Just telling someone you're incorrect doesn't mean they're incorrect.
Meanwhile, all we've done so far is debate their inability to understand their own bloody claim. We've not got to any flat Earth yet. We're having to babysit them through baby steps of their own bloody claim they don't know.
Oh, come on. Come on.
You don't know your own claim.
This is a hasty generalization logical fallacy by Nathan Oakley because he's referring to them. If he had just said Josh, it wouldn't be fallacious because we actually don't know whether or not David Whitehead knows the claims, the curvature claims, or if David Whitehead is even going to dispute the proposed size of the globe in scientism and the establishment claims. But Nathan Oakley has fallaciously made a hasty generalization and grouped in David Whitehead with Josh. I mean, Josh is clearly a guy with a mental disability. David Whitehead might be a smart guy. I'm not sure. I can't deduce that. But I'm not sure that he has a mental disability. Even if he's completely wrong and maybe kind of dumb, which we haven't seen, I'm not claiming that's the case. It does not appear that David Whitehead has an actual mental disability like Josh. So to group them together is a clear hasty generalization logical fallacy by Nathan Oakley. He should know better. I mean, that's kind of pathetic on his part.
I'm telling you that the way that you're saying that curvature exists is not.
I'm not. That's your claim. Stop telling me that's how I'm saying curvature exists. It's your claim.
This is what you are literally saying. Globe Earthers calculate curvature this way.
That's correct.
No, globe Earthers calculate it a different way.
Do they? Show us. Citation, please.
The arc.
Citation, please. Citation.
There you go. Look, dude, you're doing the same thing that
you're saying it. I heard the first time. I heard the maths the first time that was wrong. Now you're saying that's how globe Earth maths does it. Citation, please. Show me it.
David, what do we got here?
Show me it. Citation, please.
I just pulled up what Patrick put on the screen. This is from Patrick.
It's globe Earth maths. I know the globe Earth maths. I want him to cite the nonsense he's just told me I'm wrong to incorrectly, according to him, correct him on.
No, I want to hear the argument. So Patrick, take it away.
All right. Josh, claiming that only 1 degree of curvature takes place every 75 miles is simply mathematically incorrect.
Okay.
The curvature of the Earth increases exponentially as the distance gets further. And by the way, this is a globe claim, okay? The statute mile distance around the equator is 24,901, which would give you a radius of the Earth of 3,959 miles.
Right.
This is geometry, okay? This is not something that's disputable. It means, and I actually did the Taylor series at the end of this myself on paper. All you have to do is take the distance that the object is from you, square that distance in miles, and multiply it by 2/3. And that's the number of feet of curvature that should be blocking your view to that object. So after 10 miles, you take 100, because that's 10 times 10. You take 2/3 of that, and that's 66, and that's how many feet that would be blocking something that was 100 miles distant. All right?
I understand what you're saying, Patrick. Go ahead.
All right. Now, We do not observe that on the water at all.
You're right, and we don't observe that on a curved Earth either. The reason we don't observe that on a curved Earth is because what
Curved Earth? What is he talking about? Is he talking about a globe Earth? I mean, what does a curved Earth mean? I mean, technically, there is no flat Earth because it's not really a perfectly flat horizontal plane in the flat Earth model either. You have mountains. Some people believe it's like the entire one of the flat Earth models is that it's like an Antarctic basin. There's even an old map. It kind of almost looks like, for lack of a better word, a roulette wheel without the wheel. So it's kind of like just this depression. And Antarctica is obviously, according to any model, is the highest landmass on Earth. So theoretically, Antarctica would be the edge of the basin that's much higher than the rest of it. So it's not like it's a flat piece of cardboard. I don't know if anybody purports that model. So a flat Earth even would be technically curved. So, and I don't even know why they're even talking about this. It's all so weird because even your vision, you this should be also talked about before any debate opens. Because if you can only see, let's make this super simple. Let's say you're making a video game or whatever, or you can only see, let's say, 10 feet in every direction. So if you see 10 feet one way, you turn around 10 feet another way, you see in a circle. So anything beyond your what you can see, regardless of the reason, whether it's your own eye's limitation or it's atmospheric distortion, whatever it is, you're still going to see in a circle, regardless of whether you're on a sphere or a flat plane. So I don't even know why they're really discussing this, but I mean, it's just sad. Like, I don't find a genuinely mentally disabled individual, like, I mean, how can anybody really laugh at Josh? I mean, it's just sad that someone has a mental disability. Somehow they found their way onto a podcast where they're debating something. They don't know the basics of math. They don't know the basics of anything. And they're not aware they have a mental disability. So are we really going to laugh at somebody with a mental disability? I mean, that's not morally proper in any way. Why would anybody laugh at somebody with a mental disability? I mean, you'd want them to get the help they need so they can, live as a productive life as possible and make as much improvement to their intelligence as possible to live as fulfillingly as possible, not humiliate themselves on a podcast. So Nathan Oakley is just not a cool guy. I mean, the way he's treating mentally disabled people, it's just, yeah, it's not cool, man.
You're looking at there, that horizontal line using trigonometry is a horizontal plane. We're actually measuring the arc of Earth, not the horizontal plane of Earth. Does that make sense? Is that when we're looking straight out, there's slight variations of curve over time, but then you also have aspects of altitude, change in topography, and everything else that comes about in this. But if you wanted to take the whole Earth in perspective, what we're talking about is a measurement of arc, because that's how you're going to get to a sphere.
I'm literally measuring arc. The actual arc is generated by the angle theta created with the original radius to the center of the Earth.
May I, Patrick?
And then you take that. What's that?
May I? You don't know your own claim.
Nathan, I'm going to grab a glass of water.
Yeah, you don't know your own claim, guys. So how are we going to take apart your claim if you don't know it and you're denying it? We've just spent the last 10 minutes going through your globe claim that you don't know. Now, if I may, can I prove to you Earth's flat? Given that we've just spent the last 10 minutes going through your own bloody claim of a globe Earth you don't know.
Please prove it.
Thank you.
See the proof.
I can spend 10 minutes uninterrupted not proving your own claim you don't know to you and actually proving our Earth's flat to you. Excellent. You said you were in the Navy. Know any navigators in the audience?
Say that again?
Navigators from the Navy days?
Probably one or two, yeah.
Excellent. Do they know what an elevation angle measurement is? How about you? Do you know what an elevation angle is?
Well, I would assume that it's an angle at elevation.
No, it's an angle measurement from a baseline to a star to acquire its GP for navigation.
Oh, okay. Right. Gotcha. Go ahead.
So you know about celestial navigation then, being in the Navy?
A little bit. Today we don't use much of celestial navigation to navigate through the waters of the ocean, if you can imagine.
You don't think people go out on the water with sextants and they don't have them as a backup on aeroplanes? You don't think that's the case?
Oh, no, they absolutely do.
Yes, that's right, they do. So we're aware of celestial navigation then. Angle measurements can only take place on a flat Earth. Further to this, all of the models and maps, including the globe.
Wait a second. Why wouldn't you be able? I mean, you'd have to know the distances, obviously. So, and the burden of proof is on positive claims. But theoretically, if the Earth really were a globe, depending on the distance of the stars, you could do angle measurements. Why wouldn't you be able to? And depending on the size of the Earth. Now, if we're presupposing the size of the Earth and presupposing all the distances, then yeah, I mean, that's a burden of proof. You know, whoever's claiming those distances would have to prove that. But to just unequivocally state that would be an appeal to extremes.
Are derived from flat Earth elevation angle measurements to Polaris. Your latitude lines on the maps are lines drawn out based on areas of equal elevation. That's a flat Earth angle measurement to Polaris. And all celestial navigation is done with angles. You can't acquire an elevation angle from a curved surface. You take an elevation angle measurement from the plane of the Earth, and you take it with reference to the horizon or a spirit level in a sextant. That's because all lines along the ground are referenced to zero, sea level. And that's because elevation angle measurements can only be done on a flat plane. I thank you.
Okay, and so, but we're talking about to our horizon, which the amount of curvature from one point to the horizon is insignificant.
No, it's 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet.
No, that was you. According to you, that was globe.
That's according to Globe. Not according to me, according to you. That's your claim. You don't know. You keep telling me it's my claim. It isn't.
Did I say that was my claim? Anybody here? Did I say that was my claim?
It is the Globe claim you don't know. So you're saying it's not yours because you don't know it. Your ignorance does not. Your ignorance doesn't alter what the Globe claims. My bad. I know it must be painful me pointing out your ignorance.
Okay, relax. Josh,
no,
can you talk about, I'm going to let you describe what you mean when you're talking about how to measure the curvature of the Earth. So give your claim. Like, we're not here, Nathan. No, Nathan, you're here to debate me and Josh, not other people, not some. I want to hear what Josh would say to this. Let's just let him respond.
Okay. To measure the curvature of the Earth, we're talking about how the Earth is curving over distance over time. Now, as Patrick pointed out, the Earth is incredibly large. You did. You said it was, 24,000 miles in circumference. We're talking about 3,900 miles in radius. It's incredibly large.
No, it's not. I don't think that's very large, but I said it was 24,901 statute miles around the equator. I didn't characterize that in any other way than quantitatively.
Well, quantitatively, I look at that as fairly large.
That's wonderful. Please continue.
Okay. I look at that as incredibly large, especially when we're an insignificant little speck on this planet.
That begging the question fallacy.
Okay. So when you guys are explaining what globe earthers pertain to as the formula used, and I know Patrick just said that, yes, but he's talking about the curvature is computed there through theta. I understand that. That's what you said, Patrick, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. There's other aspects, more accurate aspects of which they use to do that. There is R over RE over K, which takes the hidden height, measures that through the radius of the curved light over the cosine of S over R. I got the formula right here, okay? It's a complex formula to measure the curvature of the Earth. And we can get into the mathematics, we can get into the science aspects of this as well, right?
Please.
I don't think we need to. Here's the thing.
Why not? You're disputing my claim.
I'm saying that the claim that you're using as the formula is not what I would use to calculate the curvature of the Earth.
Then what formula would you use?
What I would use is this one right here that I have. But this is what I'm trying to say. Through observational phenomena, I can understand your perspective, right? But let me ask you this. If I got onto the ocean, I left San Diego, and I went due west, Okay. When can I expect to see Earth's curvature? If it was curved, right? I'm saying that that happens 1 degree of curvature every 75 miles, but it's
Not correct.
negligent in the sense that that's your opinion. Okay. What I'm saying is that you
Mathematical
should,
reality.
okay, sure. What I'm trying to say though is that if I'm traveling along that 75-mile long line, 1 degree of curvature on a Earth that I look at as incredibly large, 24,000 miles in circumference, is negligible.
Are you
That
saying
curve-
you'll never see the curvature?
Through an observation of moving west from a point on the ocean? No.
So what
You don't have
evidence?
observable phenomena from that.
All right. Fair enough. Then let's go back to my original question.
Mhm.
What evidence do you have that the horizon is caused by the curvature of a presupposed spherical Earth?
It's kind of nothing against you, Patrick, but the question kind of doesn't really draw context. I mean, I'm trying to make sense of it, but what evidence do I have that the curvature is caused by the horizon of the planet? Let me ask you this, I guess. Let me ask a question.
Okay.
How do you perceive the Earth to be flat through the observation of the horizon?
So what you're saying,
That's a tu quoque logical fallacy. He couldn't answer the question. He has no evidence for his positive claim, so now he just wants the other guy to provide evidence, which is the other guy should provide evidence, sure. But that's like a seating of the argument. He just seated because he doesn't have any evidence. So he's like, oh, I don't have any evidence for my model. Now, what's the evidence for your model? So he just threw up the white flag there. I mean, but again, he has a mental disability, so, I mean, we can't be too harsh on him. I mean, I just, what can I do? Like, it's, yeah, I mean, this is a tough one, but I mean, it's a unique one. I'll give it that.
is you'd like me to prove that the Earth is flat rather than me
No, I don't want you to prove.
the
I
Earth is a
want
globe?
to know your thoughts and opinions. If the sun is coming over the horizon, okay,
Over the horizon.
through this observation of that phenomena, because I mean, we were talking about this before the show.
Can I
We're
answer
talking
him?
about observational data, right? So empirical data, empirical evidence, things that happen within the phenomena of nature. We observe them. We take notes. We record them. We draw hypotheses. We test those hypotheses. We develop theories. Theories are built upon repeatable experimental phenomena over and over again, right? And we try to draw conclusions from that.
Can I answer him, Patrick?
So from observing the sun rising every day, setting every day, what can we determine from that brings about the idea that the Earth is flat, non-rotating?
Nathan, why don't you take this?
Perfect. Okay, so we're moving past the assertion that Earth has a physical geometric limitation blocking boats and buildings with a measurable value in the Earth curve maths to it being our burden to prove what the horizon is and how it proves Earth flat. No problem. If you're on a boat at sea, you have a tool called a sextant. It's a tool for measuring angles. What you will do with this tool is point it at the horizon to establish a horizontal plane of reference. That's a flat Earth. Now that line that you establish as horizontal with this tool that measures angles called a sextant, you will establish that horizontal baseline with the horizon, horizontal, as the name suggests, out beyond the horizon to the GP, that's ground position of a star that you're measuring the angle to. Now the GP is the position directly below the star, which would be to say that if you were at that position on Earth, the star would be at your zenith, directly above your head. Now, that means that when you measured, using the horizon, the angle to the star, you established Earth as a horizontal plane of reference, because it can only be a horizontal plane of reference to get an angle from it. That's what an angle is, two straight lines, not...
Well, again, it depends on the size of the sphere and the distance of the star. Let's say, for example, just for the sake of argument, if the Earth is, let's say, 1 million times larger than purported, and the stars are much closer, what effect would that give on the piece of ocean that you're on? Again, none of this really proves anything, but making the claim that it can only be this. False dichotomy. It's either this or that. There could be a million different explanations, a million different... I mean, you have to prove it. Again, if you're claiming it's true, you have to prove it. We're not going to believe anything. But he would have been better off just addressing the specific the claimed distances by the globe side, because those are indeed problematic.
One curved line and one straight line. So in order to perform celestial navigation on a boat, you need the horizon to establish the ground as flat to measure an angle. Hope that answers your question.
It's important to note that we did just reverse the burden of proof. I still am asking for any evidence that the horizon is created by the curvature of a presupposed spherical Earth.
Right, and then I try to explain this, and you guys, and he was obviously trying to straw arm me. I was trying to say is that when we look at the horizon, we're not going to see curvature because at those distances, it's negligible. Because you need longer, greater distances to begin to see even 1% of the curve of the Earth. That's what I said. And you guys keep on, and he kept on going back to that same argument.
Okay.
Mathematically false.
Just a quick question.
Okay, real quick. I got a super
just a quick
chat I just want to read out real quick. It's actually related to this. It comes from SEV Gibson, $10. Thanks, man. He says, Nathan and Patrick are not listening. Josh is talking about an arc distance of 75 miles, not a plane distance. You need to back up and listen to Josh's actual claim instead of framing his belief.
I know what
No
he's
worries.
talking about. He's
No
talking about
worries.
an arc distance. That's a measurement of an angle. An arc? The arc through the
Yes, the
sextant?
measurement of a curved Earth, an angle.
No, I hadn't finished my
Because we're
sentence.
talking
I'm
about
being
an
told I'm not
angle.
listening, and then I get about 30 seconds through a
No,
sentence,
you're
and
obviously
someone
not
else starts
listening,
talking
but
straight
hold
through
on.
me.
Let me show a video real
An
quick
arc-
because this
an
video,
arc
this
distance-
video will explain what we're talking about here. Okay.
My bad.
Is that okay,
we're not,
David?
We're not,
Can we show
we're
a video?
Not okay to address anything you've said? No? Clearly not.
Okay, how about address it while I'm loading it up? Josh, go ahead and share the screen.
How do
when it works now.
I disable
So
camera?
just go share screen, and then
I don't have a
if it-
share screen.
But Josh,
Okay,
while
I've
you're
got
loading that up,
presentations,
you said
local
you don't
video.
appreciate that the horizon's supposed to be Earth curve. So have you never heard that boats go over the Earth curve, or that Chicago's blocked by Earth curve at the horizon? You've never heard those statements?
Have you ever seen the blink test videos where they show it actually does lose the bottom of
There
the
it is,
buildings?
sure.
At the
We've done this in
horizon.
Lake Ontario as well.
You're affirming that Josh does know that the horizon's claimed to be Earth curve now because he's
I'm
spent
not talking about
20
Josh.
minutes
I'm just
denying
asking you. Like, have you seen those blink tests? You know what I'm
So
talking
we have
about?
this
Yes.
right here. I want to just play this video if we can. And
Sure.
I hope
Go
you
ahead and
guys can
share
still
that,
hear me.
Josh, and here we go. All right.
Okay. So why does the Earth look flat from the surface? And if you pull that up yet, Dave, I can't. I'm frozen on this end.
Yeah, for some
Just let
reason
me know
your
when I need to
connection
play.
just dropped low, Josh. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you. Yes. Can you
Okay,
hear me?
yeah, no, you're good. I can see it on the screen. So yeah, you go ahead and push play.
Okay. I'm gonna hit play.
Is this a cartoon? It's a cartoon.
It's a model.
We don't live on a
Exactly.
model.
You're showing me a cartoon, dude. I'm gonna get some water.
Hey, do you want to tell us what the point of this is?
Okay. Thank you, David. So what that's showing you is the aspect ratio of how we are on Earth and things are getting larger and bigger, mountains, buildings, these types of things. And that at 100 kilometers, the curve of the Earth is negligible because it's a little over 1% of the actual curve of 360 degrees of angle. And I think that Nathan even said it there, but you're measuring an angle. Yes, we're measuring the curve of the Earth. That's the point. And that's what my whole argument was in the beginning, is that when we're looking at the reason a sextant works is he's saying that we're utilizing a sextant to measure on a horizontal plane. Absolutely, because at those short distances, 8, 10, 16 nautical miles, when we're talking about the horizon, the curvature of the Earth is negligible. It's not observed. This is what I was trying to say. So
sorry, Josh, just pause for a sec. Are these guys even listening to you right now?
Yeah, sure.
I don't
I'm
know.
listening.
Are they? I thought they were.
Yeah,
still
I'm
here.
listening. I'm listening,
Okay.
but every
Okay,
time I try and
but
talk,
that's
I
what I
get
was
told
trying
that
to
I'm
say,
talking
Nathan,
through
okay?
you. That's what happens kind of like now. So, I mean, I'll try and respond to some of the
Nathan,
stuff,
we
the
can
many
keep
things that
fighting
you've said,
about the
but
way
there's
we're
a good
fighting
chance
or
that
address
even
the
though I've
argument.
only
That's
just
it.
literally
Listen to the
started
argument.
speaking,
Listen to the
I can hear
argument.
someone else's voice talking
and
straight
address
through
the
the top of me.
argument.
It
Listen
seems
to
that
the
every
argument
single time I talk,
and
I'm going to
address
get
it.
someone else talking straight through the top of me no matter what I say.
Unreal.
So why shouldn't I check out, turn the camera off and just do my own thing? Because every single time I've talked so far, someone started talking in the middle of my sentence. Literally every
You've
time.
interrupted a few people too, and you got a bit of a, I don't know, you got some kind of big chip on your shoulder. I don't know what's going on.
An ad hominem
Why don't you
attack.
just listen to the argument and
did.
counter it and
did.
just be a
Okay,
civil,
I
normal
counter
human
it.
being instead of
Okay.
being a complete dick.
That's another ad hominem attack.
It is an ad hominem and it's directed directly at you, buddy.
So you can't address my argument about
You're being a
elevation
dick.
angle measurements being taken
Just
from a
listen to
flat
the argument.
surface, and instead you'll talk
just
through me and
did
use personal attacks.
multiple
Excellent
times.
debating
But
tactics.
Personal attacks. Are you going to be okay? You going to survive
I
this?
would like to actually make a statement without you ad homing me in the middle of the statement and
Okay,
accusing
don't
me
make
of
the
talking through
statement,
you. So am I checking out of the conversation or
I don't
am I
know, are you?
interrupting you? Which is
Running
it?
so early? We're only 43 minutes in.
Right. So maybe address my statement about measuring elevation angle measurements from a flat baseline.
Josh,
What was it? What was the statement? I'm sorry.
I don't
You
know.
have
It was
to
a big
acquire an
bunch of
elevation
babble.
angle measurement from a flat baseline if you're navigating, getting your nautical miles. How'd you get a nautical mile?
What are we arguing here?
You
So-
said nautical miles. I'm asking if you know what you're talking about.
Right. Miles over ocean, miles over water, right? Miles
What
over
is it?
curvature.
What is it?
What is
What's a nautical mile? What's a
I
nautical
think
mile?
a nautical mile is 1.073 miles.
No,
Am I correct
how's
on
it
that? Let me
acquired?
check the measurement.
How's it acquired? Let's see.
Why don't you tell me?
You're the one who claimed it, so you don't know what you're talking about. But it's necessary to call me a dick and the audience to think I'm not listening to you.
not
I've listened
because
to
of your
you.
argument. Not because
Okay.
of your argument.
Again,
because of the
I'm
way
in the
you're
middle of
behaving in this
talking
discussion.
and
That's
someone
why
is
I-
immediately talking
you can
through
be a
me.
dick. I don't
Why?
mind
Because
you
I'm a
being a dick.
dick? Is this me being a
doesn't
dick
bother
being
you.
talked through? I'm still talking. I listened to you, now trying to respond to all the stuff you've said. You've talked non-stop for 45 minutes. I've had about 3. So, you've mentioned repeatedly, this is about science. So what science have you got for a globe Earth?
Okay, let's backtrack because you just asked me what a nautical mile was. I said it's a mile as determined over the ocean, or we can say air or whatever. It's 1,852 meters, just a little bit bigger than a regular mile. Okay, so anyways, what I'm trying to say here is that the curvature of the Earth, and I think we need to move on from the curvature of the Earth part. Well, no, because
Oh, no, I
Nathan,
got
everything
more
that
on
you've
this. I'm just
said has
waiting for this
basically
to settle, and then I'll show you some stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Go
Well,
ahead,
how about
finish
this?
that.
Let's just move on from this argument. We can just talk to this as a null point. And Patrick, no, seriously, jump in if you want to. If you want to explain.
I would like to jump
Yeah,
in.
go
I'd
ahead.
like to say, first of all, I don't know how long you guys have been looking into this, okay? But this is a question of geometry. This is not a question of anything other than, can you draw a circle on a piece of paper, stick a triangle on it, figure out the trig, and you'll know after you work a Taylor series at the end, just to expand the trigonometric function, you'll know that the curvature of the Earth over distance x is 8 inches times x squared, period. It is
Okay,
not
can I?
1 degree
sorry,
for every
finish that.
75 miles. And
Okay.
so I really want to, this is settled upon. The globe people agree with this. They just say refraction is what hides the curve.
Good, David.
All right. What about, so earlier, Patrick, you had some issues with Josh showing you what you call the cartoon, which was just a model to try to give some perspective on what's being said, right? Yet now we're talking about drawing circles on a piece of paper, right? And so what I'm asking is what kind of observable experiments that you can point to in reality? Like, let's get off YouTube and off the papers and all that for a minute and just talk about observing reality. Because I'm not sure if you've become aware of this. I'm sure you guys are aware of this. It's a place called Lake Pontchartrain. It's the transmission lines in Louisiana, United States.
This is kind of weird that he brought this up. I mean, street lamps have the same effect on a street over a short distance. I mean, also, like, he could bring up train tracks touching in the distance. Does that mean they really touch because they look like they touch? I mean, it's kind of weird because that horizon, that's not the real horizon. That's the problem. Like with a lot of these, it's like they don't understand what a true horizon is versus an apparent horizon. Why would you expect the horizon to be where it looks like it is if there's something called atmosphere and precipitation in our reality? Regardless of whether the Earth is a globe or flat, I mean, everybody knows that rain exists, right? I mean, are there people, I mean, maybe this Josh guy, I don't know, but are there people that are going to claim that there's no such thing as fog or rain or precipitation of any kind? I mean, like, these are basics. These are basics. I mean, I don't expect Josh to know this. I mean, he clearly has a mental disability. But David Whitehead appears to not have a mental disability. And he really brought up this example of not understanding the difference between horizon and true horizon. I mean, yeah, this is weird.
Anybody can go here and do this. Now, this is not my picture, but I've had friends of mine actually go and repeat this experiment. There's actually a few places that you can do this. And a real quick explanation is it's essentially a causeway. This image was done originally by a YouTuber named Soundly. So anybody that's interested in following up on all of this, if you go on YouTube, you look up Soundly, there's tons of videos talking about all of this. And this image was virtually modeled on a spherical Earth with a circumference of 40,000 kilometers. The model made a prediction that if zoomed in at the specific height, what we should see. This image is what the model showed. And when this shot was done in reality, that's exactly what you see. So what they did was they created a model, they made predictions, and when they went with a Nikon P1000 camera, which is one of the favorite cameras that flat earthers like to say is the best for zoom capabilities, they went and they actually saw the effects of their model and their prediction in actual reality. So the bridge, it shows right here. You got 24.27 kilometers, which is 15 miles across. At least that's what you can see. And if the Earth was flat, the vanishing point should intersect the horizon line. But in reality,
which it kind of looks like it does if you're not presupposing where the horizon is. That's why when you're dealing with experiments, as I outlined at the beginning, you have the dependent, independent variable, and controls. And I don't know why this is such a foreign concept for so many people, but things are not the way they look like, especially across great distances. I mean, are these goofs really going to argue that train tracks touch in the distance because they look like they touch? I mean, really? Again, precipitation exists. I mean, it's like, it's not rocket science here.
vanishing point is above the horizon line.
Nathan,
So
let me take a crack at this first before you jump in. I'm sorry, David. Did I interrupt you?
no, you didn't.
You
man.
got an echo though.
Okay, I'm getting a bad echo.
Oh, maybe if you're not talking, everybody mute. That'll fix that.
Okay. It's really bad. The question is it my fault? All right. Anyway,
I'm not hearing any on my end.
a little bit. So there's a fallacy called the affirming the consequent fallacy. So we're gonna start. I'm not going to address this picture that you're showing me just yet. But when I talk about the rule of geometry, and by the way, I did the geometry because we're told that the Earth is a ball of radius 3959 miles. Okay, and so just doing trig, you'll know that the distance to horizon can be no more than 1.225 times the square root of 1.225 miles times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Okay, now all horizons can be no bigger than that on a sphere of those dimensions. This is mathematically verifiable. So it's all of them. So if you have one instance where it matches up with where the globe would expect that horizon to be, that's one instance. That's it's a claim. You know, all swans are white. How many black swans do you need to falsify the claim that all swans are white? Just one black swan. It's a Popper's razor. And so the Lake Pontchartrain train, whatever it happens to show, I can show 100 different cases where the horizon is incredibly further, is way more distant than a sphere of those dimensions would allow. You have to get through that. That's a huge problem for the globe. And I'd
Okay,
like it to
which
be
ones can you show? Just show.
Okay.
And
Go ahead.
and I just need to know the conditions of the environment during that day. What was the cloud conditions, all of that. And
So clearly, David Whitehead does not have a mental disability. He understands conditions play a factor, like precipitation. Now, what is kind of strange is he really doesn't know. He doesn't understand apparent horizon versus true horizon. That's kind of weird. I mean, it appears he's done some level of research here. I mean, it's kind of weird. I'm surprised.
we would need to know what kind of camera was used. We need to know, was it zoomed in? How, like, there's certain things we'd need to know if those experiments are accurate.
Sure,
No
we'd,
worries.
we'd also need to.
Would it be safe to say that clouds and atmospheric haze would make it harder to see a great distance rather than easier?
Like, you were talking like cloudy day, it's obscuring the horizon. Of course.
Cloudy day would make it harder to see. You would see less far on a cloudy day, and you would see further on a clear day.
And you can see even better on some other days where the atmospheric conditions allow for that.
Atmo, what now?
Okay.
And really quickly, just before you go there, this experiment was
be
done
heard.
over a 10-day period
I've now removed
where
completely
it
from the
changed
conversation, it
dramatically
seems.
the weather throughout
Host
that
has muted
time.
me and I can't
And
hear
many
talking.
people have gone since, soundly released this, and have confirmed this as well and posted their results. So the question would be, maybe we can ask John if we can, instead of calling Tesla and chartering a rocket out of the planet, we could just go to Louisiana and we can go into the Marriott Hotel right across from the causeway. And we can all get our cameras the way we think they should be set up and whatever camera we want. And we do a repeatable experiment over a 10-day period to bring that into account for changes in the atmosphere, the cloud, the fog, and how perspective can be affected by that, and see if we still get the same results. Go ahead,
Hello?
Nathan.
Hi.
Oh, wait, hold on. There you go.
So just wanted to double check something with Josh. So given that your co-host is now asking us to explain away the horizon in the Lake Pontchartrain image based on the maths that we laid down at the beginning of the show that you denied, and you said that we wouldn't be able to see Earth curve at the horizon, Josh. So are we now arguing for the horizon in the Lake Pontchartrain image at 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet as per the model and the maths that you denied? Or is that horizon not Earth curve? Because you seem confused about it, Josh. I just want to confirm that that is the horizon at 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet that you said we weren't talking about. Because I'm very confused based on what you've said, Josh.
Well, I apologize that you're confused. No, what I'm saying is I was trying to explain something in terms of how I understood it. I was not familiar with that formulation that Patrick and you had brought about, hence why I was saying that I do not recognize that, and I explained my position on what I was talking about.
Gotcha.
If that
Do you
makes
understand
sense.
it now your co-host has put it in the same way we put it?
Well, that's great. And so let's answer his question then.
Okay. So I'd like to address Josh first, if that's all right, David.
Yeah.
Josh, it is true that you have said on more than one occasion during this discussion that the Earth is just so incredibly big that we won't expect to be able to detect any curvature. You did say that. You said that 3 times, if I'm not mistaken. And now we have this Lake Pontchartrain photo, which has what appears to be extremely exaggerated curvature. So I need to know, can we now dispense with the notion that that in the globe model, the horizon is not Earth curve? Because I really, really want to kind of nail you guys down on this, that we should expect the horizon to be of a specific distance based upon the geometry of a spherical Earth. Can I get you guys to concede that point?
They have. He just put it to us with his model. It just contradicted the host.
I'd like it to be acknowledged.
Well, no. So hold on, Nathan. Let me explain. Let me talk for a second, if that's okay. So the horizon, as we discussed right a second ago with David, does change. You even said that, Patrick, that on cloudy, different atmosphere.
Wow, this guy's still spinning. I mean, it's kind of hard to be too harsh on him because he clearly has a severe mental disability. But, I mean, people with mental disabilities can still have egos, as he clearly stated. He's obviously too insecure to concede that he's completely wrong, And because if that image is legitimate, like if we pretend the apparent horizon is always the true horizon, then that would be a pretty good piece of evidence. Like if there's no precipitation and the apparent horizon is always exactly where the true horizon is, then that is a good piece of evidence. I mean, obviously you need more than one piece, but as David Whitehead said, if you had a whole bunch of people taking all these videos and photos and it all matched up, that is good evidence. Again, if there's no such thing as precipitation and apparent horizon and true horizon, there's only horizon because apparent and true are always the same. If we pretend that, then it's really good evidence. But this Josh guy, I mean, the mental disability is so severe, and obviously his ego's got him on real short strings. It's a weird thing. Some mentally disabled people, they have no ego at all. And then other mentally disabled people have, their ego has them in even shorter strings than the average person. I mean, obviously there's all kinds, but it's weird. It's like there's not, again, you can call this anecdotal. From all the stats I've looked at and all the people I've known, by stats I mean talking to people who just everybody I know, I ask everybody, they ask people that they know. Obviously it's a very limited data experiment. I'm not claiming this is true of the entire population of the Earth. I'm just saying that it is curious that it seems, from my personal experience and personal surveying, which is admittedly a very small sample size, that mentally disabled people either have basically almost no ego or, severe ego issues like this Josh guy. So we clearly know what kind of mentally disabled individual this is. Obviously very sad to see. I don't want to be too harsh on him, but yeah, let him spin his wheels.
Days, the horizon is going to appear to be shorter in distance.
Right,
on
Atmo
some
what
other
now?
days, it's going to be.
Atmo what now?
Excuse me, Nathan. I'm talking.
Just didn't hear the word. What was the word? Atmo what now?
Let's not do that.
It's a begging the question fallacy. Do we not address fallacies here?
When they make fallacies, we're not going to interrupt.
Oh, my bad.
We'll let them be fallacious. All right. Please continue, Josh.
Okay. So the atmosphere or to the horizon, this can change. Atmospheric conditions, barometric pressures, amount of cloud cover, right? The amount of moisture content, carbon dioxide, all these other gases that are in the air. All these things can change and can give you different perspectives on the horizon.
That's actually kind of curious because that is true. I mean, again, obviously, just because he's mentally disabled doesn't mean he can't know some things, obviously. I mean, he clearly has at least a conversational level of English. He's not, he's not completely a vegetable. But, yeah, he just completely disproved David Whitehead's piece of evidence now because, obviously, if he understands all of these precipitation differences and atmospheric conditions, that, obviously that would mean the apparent horizon is not necessarily the true horizon.
I said typically in the Navy, when we're looking at the ocean, I believe it was somewhere between 8 to 16 nautical miles, depending on the various different atmospheric conditions. Okay? So what I was trying to say, and this is what I thought I did iterate, is that from a eye-open position, just looking and perceiving to see if there's curve, it's not going to be seen because it's negligible at that distance. Now, looking at an object like David's showing, right, we have this curvature that's going over the horizon. Why is that happening?
It's not. It's the horizon. The horizon's not Earth curve. If the horizon was Earth curve, then every distance to horizon measurement could be no more than 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. And in the black swan imagery, we can show that the distance to horizon is beyond 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, as it must be on a sphere Earth radius 3959.
Yeah,
And actually, it was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I want to point out, Josh, you bring up these atmospheric disturbances or atmospheric conditions, water vapor,
Correct.
carbon dioxide, whatever, clouds. Those things make visibility less, not more. So
Well, it
I really
depends.
think that. No, it doesn't. Those things really do make visibility less, period. I mean, I would just appeal to the common sense of the audience in this case. Clouds make it harder to see stuff. They don't make things appear that wouldn't normally appear.
Well, clouds and various different gases existing in the atmosphere are different things. Clouds are a concentration of water vapors, where
They make
in the sense of
visibility less, not more.
clouds do. Yeah, absolutely, clouds do.
Atmospheric interference of all kinds reduces.
Can you look through
visibility.
a glass of water and have a magnification on the other end?
Okay, may I just, it's atmosphere you're talking about?
No, I asked Patrick a question.
That's,
That's what I'm asking.
it's irrelevant. My
It's not
question.
irrelevant. Can I look through a water glass and is the object on the other end?
Is he trying to argue for some kind of glass dome or something? Like, what? Or is he saying that it is irrelevant because it's a non-congruent argument, clearly, because glass doesn't magically appear. I mean, unless he's claiming it does, and if he has evidence for that, that's cool. Because that's interesting. I've never heard anybody claim that glass magically appears on some days just a few miles away and then disappears. Like, what glass is magically appearing and causing distortions that he's talking about? I mean, I don't know. Josh is a very unique individual.
Magnified.
There can be lensing that takes place through the atmosphere.
Okay.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Okay, can I get to
I
the
definitely
fallacy
agree with
now?
Okay.
I was told I wasn't allowed to interrupt.
So I was correct on that premise when I said that.
Yes.
Other than the fallacy
Now-
you used, which obviously I'm never going to get to ever address. So you said what now?
Atmosphere.
Atmosphere?
Atmosphere.
So
Yeah,
do you believe that sphere-shaped air is something we experience?
Why don't you explain to me what you perceive it to be?
It's your word. You said atmosphere. What do you think that means?
That is the amount of gases that are held within the Earth by gravity.
Held? Gravity doesn't hold anything. It's not a force. There's no scientific
Oh,
evidence
really?
of gravity.
Really?
Middle of a statement.
So
Middle of a statement. My bad.
so-
Obviously, it's me
Why
being a
don't
dick,
I-
wanting to make a
How do
false
I call
statement,
gravity?
contradicting you. Obviously, that's me being a dick. No, there is no force
that's
of
fine.
gravity.
No, go
Well, that
right-
was
we
you
can-
being
My
we
bad,
can-
still
we
in the
can
middle of the
go
same
with this
sentence.
part.
Obviously,
I
this
love
is me being a
This
dick.
fine.
Maybe this is me interrupting you. So gravity's not a force.
Which you've been doing the whole show.
My bad,
but
that's the
okay.
fourth attempt. Gravity's not a force to hold gas in a sphere shape. Gravity is the bending of a conceptual medium known as pseudo-Riemannian force space-time derived in the mind's eye of Einstein in mathematics. It's a fourth-dimensional geometry. Meanwhile, in reality, we live in a three-dimensional Euclidean reality. There is no dimension of time to bend. Even if we could bend time as a dimension in a Euclidean four-space geometry, it wouldn't be a container for gas. Gas isn't held by pseudo-Riemannian force-space time bending in an Einsteinian gravitational dimension. Further to that, the notion that gas being held, i.e. gravity is a force, was debunked by Einstein 108 years ago. Mass does not attract mass. That's a Newtonian concept of gas. Pressure being held because of its weight going down towards the centre of Earth.
I'm not sure Newton claimed that either. Didn't he say that he didn't want gravity caused by mass attracting mass to be attributed to him? But in any case, clearly Nathan Oakley, I mean, he's light years ahead of this. I mean, everybody's light years ahead of Josh. So, I mean, it's just tough. I mean, this is tough.
That was superseded 108 years ago by Einstein when he developed the fourth-dimensional space-time bending, which is not a force and is definitely not a container to hold gas in a sphere shape. So your oxymoron, sphere-shaped air, is merely a begging the question fallacy to allow you to describe atmospheric conditions as based on an R value, a sphere value.
I'm going to dispute this as well. Even though most of what Nathan is saying here is true, it's still going to fall under. I'm throwing this under no true Scotsman and a semantics fallacy, because the point of what Josh was saying is true, that there's going to be a different amount of precipitation in the air. That's why some days it rains, some days it doesn't rain. It's kind of irrelevant. I mean, if they want to move the conversation to gravity, then it wouldn't be this fallacy, because then they're talking about gravity. Because what Nathan just said about gravity, other than attributing to Newton, is true. So that wouldn't be a fallacy if the subject was gravity. The subject is how far you would see exactly where the horizon is, et cetera, regarding the curve. So this is like, I mean, this is Nathan Oakley, again, being unnecessarily obnoxious and almost like he's just showing off his knowledge. But I mean, this is kind of like the bully. This is kind of like a high school bully picking on an elementary kid. I mean, there's no virtue or honor here, regardless of how accurate what Nathan Oakley is saying. Again, other than the attribution to Newton, but yeah, I mean, it's just sad. Like you can't respect a high schooler that pushes around an elementary school kid. I mean, that's what he's doing intellectually here.
The radius of Earth being the value that derives your refraction rate at 7/6 of the radius in sphere-shaped air. Atmo, air, sphere, a shape. Air doesn't take the shape of a sphere, it takes the shape of its containment. If the gas was in a sky vacuum, we'd have none to breathe. We'd all be dead, because gas fills space. Gravity's not a force. Bending fourth-dimensional space-time doesn't hold it in a container.
And if I could say something else, Josh, you do bring up the concept of gravity, and that's what holds our so-called atmosphere here. I would ask you, what evidence do you have that gas gets acted upon by so-called gravity?
Air.
What?
Air.
That's not an answer. What evidence do you have that gas gets pulled on by gravity?
Okay. Let's extrapolate this, okay? Because I like looking at conceptualization of ideas.
Conceptualization of ideas. Is it possible to make a statement that makes less sense than that? I mean, did this guy go to the same demagogue school as Michael Sartain? I mean, I realize he has a mental disability, but still, it's like he's got a mental disability and, you know, obviously some narcissistic issues here because his ego's got him on really short strings. You could see the pain in his face, like right before he started just throwing out words with multiple syllables to try to make himself sound smart. Again, I really can't attack this poor guy. I mean, he's clearly got a severe mental disability, self-esteem issues. Like, all the guy can do to make himself feel good is just throw around multi-syllable words and make it look like he knows what he's talking about while being too insecure to cede any points. You know, there's, you know, again, this is like, I don't want to pick on an elementary school kid. Like, I really don't want to do a logical analysis on Josh. I mean, I know some of the MINDSHOCK listeners might think that's a cop-out. I mean, I just really don't. I mean, I don't want to push around, like, as a high schooler, I don't want to push around an elementary school kid. I mean, who does? Who thinks that's on him other than maybe Nathan Oakley? Who would actually want to do something like that? It's not something yeah, this one's tough. This one's tough for a lot of different reasons. I mean, yeah, it's even his answer, air proves air. I mean, what? What? I mean, this is tough.
I got to see it, right? We got to see it. On a flat Earth, right? And this is maybe where we begin. On a flat Earth, what is holding us down?
What do you mean? What's holding us down? Gas is expanding in all directions. It's not going down. We're talking about gas.
That's not what I asked. Why are my feet on the ground, and when I jump up, I fall back down?
You're more dense than the air.
Why is that
you
happening
jumped.
on a flat Earth?
Because you're more dense.
Why is that happening on a
okay,
flat
I'm trying
Earth?
to answer. Because you're more dense than
You're
air.
more dense.
You're more dense than air.
So you're saying that
I'm still in the middle of
force that's
answering you.
actually
Okay, it's
pulling
more than one or two words. You want to call me a dick again? Because I'm in the middle of saying something and you can't help
I never
talking through
called
me
you a
every
dick, by the
single
way,
time
but
I try and
anyways,
address you. You've asked
you
me,
can't be
why do I go down on a flat Earth? Do I only get 10 seconds to answer?
Go. I'm
Go ahead.
waiting.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you to shut up. So you are more dense than the medium of air. If you jump into a pool of water, you float because you're pretty much the same density as the water. You don't go down. Meanwhile, helium balloons, if you let them go, don't go down either. And clouds and gas isn't going down with gravity. It's not going down 9.8 meters per second squared in line with 808-year out-of-date force pulling it, or a bending geodesic and fourth-dimensional space-time pulling it to the ground. Gas is created at ground level and goes up. So when you ask me why you go down through the medium of gas, what, are you going to ignore the gas in the puddles being created and going up to the clouds? They're not going down with gravity, are they?
So Nathan, can I ask you a question on this real quick? What is air?
An inhomogeneous anisotropic mixture of gases.
What kind of gases?
All sorts of different gases. What's the point of this?
Like
It's
what?
not going down with
Like what?
gravity. It's not creating a sphere-shaped air. We haven't got atmosphere. You seem to be focusing on something that I haven't claimed. This is all in regards to your claim that there's sphere-shaped air held by gravity. What's going on? Every single time I address anything that's put to me, it's two people talking at the same time. Everything I say triggers you, clearly. Yeah. The reason we're having this discussion is because there it goes again. There it goes again. The composition of air, when we're discussing sphere-shaped atmosphere made by a claim that you put to us, what's the relevance? Who cares what the proportions of air are? It's created at ground level and doesn't go down with gravity and form a sphere shape. That's your claim debunked. You're going to concede that?
Can I speak?
In the middle of me talking or when I've stopped? Obviously, you can speak. I've finished making my point.
You have stopped, so I'm asking you, obviously, can I speak? You talk about the medium of air. Air, you just said, is a combination of gases. But then you were saying that what we experience as gravity is due to density. If that was the case, then you would see a substrate of gases. Firstly, you have nitrogen, you have oxygen. These are two different elements on the periodic table at two different densities. You have water that is in air. That is at a very larger density. Why aren't they separating through the densities of what you just talked about?
I already answered you when I said it was an anisotropic inhomogeneous mixture of gases. Gases of air have gaps between them. They disperse. It's a law of nature. It's called entropy.
Air
and there we go again in the middle of my sentence. Obviously, halfway through the sentence, you need to be talking.
Yeah.
You done? You done? Can I talk? Are you done? Have you finished? Do I have your permission to talk? Do I have your permission to finish the sentence?
No, what you're saying is making any sense.
No, I do not have permission to finish this sentence. Okay, so I don't have permission to talk. Okay, I understand.
Wow.
This is hilarious.
Patrick, would you like to chime in on what I was asking?
I'll answer you, Josh.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Number one, you asked why we go down. We're more dense than air, just like Nathan said.
Right.
We live in a density gradient. Denser things go down, less dense things go up.
Correct.
Okay? Very important. Gases do not fall to the earth. Period. Gases expand in all directions. Entropy increases. You cannot have gas pressure without containment. The heliocentric model claims that the gas that we are breathing is immediately adjacent to a 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum. That is not possible. And there is no evidence that so-called gravity causes gas to go down. Otherwise, we'd be sweeping up gas from the floor. Gas goes up, gas goes down, gas goes to the side, it goes everywhere. There is no evidence that the sky is a vacuum. There.
So, Patrick, do you have a carbon monoxide detector in your house?
No.
Okay, I do. We put them on the bottom outlets. The reason is because carbon dioxide is a heavier gas than air and falls down to the floor.
No, it doesn't.
When they're talking about global warming and they measure carbon dioxide levels on the surface level, they're measuring them at the surface level. Yes, they expand. They can be expanded up. They can be expanded down. But heavier gases do fall down.
So how does that contradict anything they said? If something is lighter, like a helium balloon, it goes up. Something heavier, it goes down. Like, does Josh not understand that he just proved that he's arguing the same argument they made? I mean, from the look on his face, he doesn't understand that or anything, which is what makes this logical analysis so difficult. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, I really don't want to call him dumb. This is a mental disability. I mean, we're watching a mentally disabled individual who's never been told they're mentally disabled argue, and he's being relatively polite. I mean, how can anybody hate on this poor Josh guy? Like, I really don't understand how anybody could hate on this guy.
No, they
you
do
cannot
not
have gas pressure without containment. Do you agree?
Try and address this? Keep saying it and you're not addressing it. Saying gases go down, like carbon monoxide. No. Carbon monoxide, when introduced in a high quantity to other gases that are already existent in a contained system, can form at the bottom. Same with sulfur hexafluoride. But all gases, without exception, will disperse into whatever volume they have. With time, all of that carbon monoxide will disperse throughout the containment, without exception. It's a law of nature. It's the second law of thermodynamics. Dispersion. It's a law of nature. So saying it forms puddles, no, it does not.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this then. If something is heavier, more dense, falls down, is it not being contained by the substrate above it?
Right. Substrates of gases don't contain other gases. They have gaps between them. Gases can't contain gas. They're just a gap. That's all it is. Molecules moving through gaps. So how's it being contained by a substrate of other gases?
What
when it's an when it's an anisotropic, inhomogeneous mixture of gases. When you go up to the very highest heights, there isn't a layer of different gas. It's all one mixture. It's all mixed up. The only place you find that is where the gases are produced. So if you have a carbon monoxide leak into a house, it's trying to disperse already existing gases in a contained system. So you'll have a higher concentration where it's being introduced. Likewise, on a much bigger scale, you've got a higher concentration of water vapour pre-conversion layer at the cloud substrate, if you want to call it that. But there's still a mixture of all of the different gases at all quantities, at all levels, because it's an anisotropic, inhomogeneous mixture of gases. Meanwhile, to have this dynamic system, we must have containment. If the sky was a vacuum, as is claimed to be a place you can take pictures of Earth as a sphere from space, that's a space that gas would fill, then all of the gases we have here breathing at pressure would fill that space. Because what are they pressing on? At the top, where there's the Kármán line, an arbitrary point that they say forms the volume of the gas that we all breathe. Well, volume is the amount of containment for the gas. The Kármán line is not a container, and gravity is not a force. So we don't have a sky vacuum. The sky is not a vacuum. If it was, the gas would fill it. We'd all be dead.
And just something helpful that, again, they should just introduce this at the beginning. When someone's done speaking, they should just say done. Because sometimes when they're taking a breath or a slight pause before continuing, that could be interpreted, especially with lags or whatever, that could be interpreted as they're done. So if they should just add, say done when you're done, and that would obviously cut down on, obviously not all, but I think it would cut down on a number of interruptions, just, for the sake of not interrupting.
Space is fake.
Okay.
Also gay.
There's a lot of arguments coming in. I want to just quickly return back to the causeway.
Yeah.
Just for the benefit of the listeners, if you would like to check this out, this has already been modeled out and thoroughly documented over at Walter Bislin's blog. I'll drop all the links afterwards. And what this is a curvature app simulation based on the observations that were made. So with the help of a simulation, I'll just read this out. With the help of a simulation, I show up to what altitude the Earth appears flat, although it actually has a spherical shape. Using some animations, you can learn how to recognize the curvature of the Earth or in what circumstances it appears flat. The simulation can also simulate refraction. And I prove by means of photos how the simulation depicts reality by superimposing the simulation results onto actual photos. So this is how it goes. So if we go to the causeway, this is Lake Pontchartrain, and they're just showing you the different measurements here.
But without accounting for apparent horizon to true horizon, how much is any of that worth? That's why at the beginning, I advocate for clearly making sure it is very clear to all parties. In order for something to be scientific, you need an independent variable, dependent variables, and controls. And that way, you're not just claiming every single prediction or experiment is scientific just for the sake of it. Saying the word scientific or science doesn't make it so. Obviously, in the religion of scientism, it does. But anybody conducting real science, obviously it doesn't. I am kind of a little bit surprised that Whitehead said he spent years on this topic, like literally years. He said he's been studying for years. And he didn't bring up true horizon to apparent versus apparent horizon. Because all of this doesn't mean anything without accounting for that. So, yeah, I mean, this is tough.
The perspective. So just let the model go through real quick, and then you guys can come in and rebut it. And you can even go in and you can toggle your height, right? So that you can get the idea. You can zoom. And I'm just bringing this up. I don't have to go through the whole thing. Like, it's all broken down. The math is here, how the values were determined, what the images are, what the equations are, right? All of this stuff. The refraction is all included. So it's just a tool that was created based on a model that made predictions, and then they went and validated those predictions.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Without accounting for independent variable, and controls, that's not validation. And is this truly scientific in nature if it doesn't account for all variables? I mean, Whitehead himself said earlier that you have to account for variables. I don't know if he used those exact words, but he did say that. You can't just, willy-nilly do whatever. You have to actually make sure it's a scientific experiment. Now, apparently, that's all abandoned just because this Walter Bislin guy threw some numbers around that look mathematically accurate. And I'm not saying they're not mathematically accurate. If the unicorn math is correct, that still doesn't prove unicorns. I mean, I think someone in the chat said something about unicorn moon sauce. I think unicorn moon juice sounds funnier, though. Even if you measure all the unicorn moon juice and, you have perfectly milliliters, you have all the milliliters of the unicorn moon juice perfectly measured. And the math is absolutely perfect. Does that mean that the unicorn moon juice is actually unicorn moon juice?
With photos and video, it's been repeated multiple times over a period of time, and they get the same results. And there's numerous areas. There's another lake that there was another experiment that was done.
So if they repeatedly calculate the apparent horizon as if it were the true horizon when it's not, if they keep making the same error and it's consistently erroneous, does that make it non-erroneous? I mean, Whitehead should know these things. I mean, I still like the guy. I'm still a fan. I wonder if he actually does listen to this. I would like to hear his rebuttal to all this, because I'm not getting the impression that he's intellectually dishonest. I'm not getting the impression that this Josh guy is intellectually dishonest either. He's just mentally disabled. So obviously we can't expect him to understand any concepts. But Whitehead, I think he's intelligent enough to understand all of this.
No,
that we can bring up as well. But anyways, just so that you have a place to go and look into this, because there's answers to the claims that are being made here. And that's where we are. And this is where this debate has been stuck for years, is that one group is saying, this is the way the math has to be done. This is the way we have to calculate it. And the other is saying, no, you're missing this data. And there's been a gap between this debate in that regard for a long time. So this means that each and every one of us, the viewers, have to go and try to verify that for themselves. I'm not saying just believe a model, but the model represents, if the model is accurate.
Ooh, yeah. What's that word there? If. That's a big if. And again, if you're doing a scientific experiment, you need the independent variables, and controls. You need to know the difference with these variables. Because otherwise, you're just making, you're just building all of these unicorn moon juice piles. And even if you measure all of them perfectly and consistently, and you repeat the measurements, it still doesn't mean that the unicorn moon juice is unicorn moon juice.
And when you go to the reality, to the real world and document it, if you can debunk the model or you can prove it correct, and you have to do it through repeatable experiments.
Only if you have the variables accounted for.
Can I debunk the model? It's not an experiment. You don't know what science is. But can I debunk the model, please?
Debunk away.
If the Earth was a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, as depicted in the Begging the Question Proof of Nothing Perspective Hijacking Walter Bislin model, then every distance to the horizon could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, exactly as dictated in Walter Bislin's model. The distance to the horizon in the Black Swan is beyond the geometric limitations of a globe Earth, radius 3959, as depicted in Walter Bislin's crappy Begging the Question Proof of Nothing Perspective Hijacking Earth Curve calculations in his model. Therefore, the Earth is not a sphere with a radius of 3959, and the horizon is not Earth curve.
I'd like to respond as well.
One sec, Patrick. I just want to point out that was that an ad hominem fallacy against Walter Bislin?
No, not at all.
He used the word crappy. That made it so. Hijacking, not necessarily, but crappy, that is ad hom. However, he also included the argument, but if he did the argument, then called Walter Bislin an idiot, that wouldn't be ad hom. But he put it in the middle. I mean, I would count it as ad hom.
Repeat that last sentence again.
If the Earth was a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, then every distance to horizon could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, as laid down in Walter Bislin's Begging the Question. That means he's assuming the outcome because it's got an R value in it. Proof of Nothing, because it assumes its outcome and has got an R value that can't be measured if the horizon's beyond the geometric distance laid down in these maths.
See, this is why obviously Nathan is not correct about all of this, but let's say he is. He's still the wrong guy for these debates as well, because it doesn't seem like he's interested. See, again, if he's going against some of these goofs like Professor Dave or McToon, or just like or Michael Sartain, even like some of these narcissistic, intentionally, intellectually dishonest goofs, then yes, I think he probably is the right guy for those debates. But here he's on with a poor mentally disabled individual, Josh, and then a very polite, very, very polite, possibly open-minded Whitehead. He's not really going to do anything in this debate because he's not really interested in helping. I mean, obviously, you can't get someone like Josh to understand any of this, but I think Whitehead is capable of understanding all of this. You're not going to get him to understand that by just talking super fast, because you need to break it down in simpler steps. And they should have started it off with just 5 basic fallacies, so that way he can refer back to them. I mean, just that extra 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning of going through fallacies, that would spare hours throughout the middle of the debate, because then they could just reference the beginning. Nathan Oakley doesn't seem interested at all in helping anyone understand anything. If he's correct, let's assume he's correct about everything. He's not, but let's assume he is. Just regurgitating what you believe to be true, even if it is true, and regurgitating all of the mathematics, which I'm not disputing that. I think Nathan probably did get all of the math correctly, and so did Patrick here. So just regurgitating all the math, even if it's all completely accurate, that's not really helpful to anything if you have zero care that anybody understands anything. Patrick is much better. I still would say he's a little fast, because if somebody took it a little bit slower, like David Weiss, Jeranism, Austin Whitsitt, I mean, those guys debate much better in this way. Obviously, in certain other way, I mean, Austin's pretty flawless, but Jeranism and Weiss miss a lot of stuff too. But the manner in which they debate is much better, and Austin's pretty fast too. But Austin seems to genuinely care and want to help them understand, even if they don't and they don't care. He does his part. So that if they cared and wanted to understand, then they could. Like Bryant Myers, if he's Dunning-Kruger wasn't off the charts and he wasn't so triggered, and he was actually open to what Austin was saying regarding some of the concepts, again, nothing to do with the conclusion, just the arguments themselves, that the alleged proofs or arguments Bryant Myers was using were fallacious, he would be able to understand that they were completely fallacious. Even if he's correct about the shape of the Earth, all the arguments were fallacious, so he would be able to understand that if he wanted to. Even if Whitehead and Josh, well, I mean, what are you going to do with Josh? But even if David Whitehead wanted to understand, which he appears to, he's still not going to get it, because Nathan Oakley is just rattling all of this off so quick with zero regard of whether or not David is going to understand or the audience is going to understand. It's like he just wants to do this to win, which is fine, which is perfectly fine if you're there just to win the debate. But if you actually care about other people understanding why and how you won, this is not the way to debate.
Proof of Nothing perspective hijacking, because there's no account for things reducing in angular size in Walter Bislin's Begging the Question. Proof of Nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculations with a geometric horizon at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, based on an R value that is acquired by a geometric calculation derived from a horizon distance measurement by Alberuni. Anything else?
Yes. And
we should get in touch with Walter Bislin and have him come on and respond to that. But anyways, go ahead,
absolutely.
Patrick.
That sounds delightful. I'd love to talk to Walter Bislin, but I'd like to say this. Geometrically speaking, First of all, if you guys really have been looking at this subject for this long, you really should have known 8 inches per mile squared by now. But here's the thing. What happens when you talk to globers and you show them extremely distant objects that cannot possibly exist in the globe model? You cannot possibly see them. They would be obscured by the curvature of the Earth. They retroactively say, well, this time it's refraction bringing it closer to us. Or this time it's this, that, or the other. Or honestly, it's refraction over and over again. But we have...
Are you saying refraction isn't a thing, though?
No, not in your
I'm
model.
not saying refraction isn't a thing.
Not in
I'm
your
saying
model,
it doesn't
isn't.
it doesn't magically delete Earth curve.
In your model, in Walter Bislin's model, you can look at the maths. I'm very familiar with Walter Bislin's maths. He used the same as Mick West in the metabunk calculation, same model. I have spoken to him about it and had him over a barrel when I pointed out that the assumption of the R value in his model isn't in any way proven or measurable. It's a begging the question calculator, same as Walter Bislin, so they're the exact same maths. So I have spoken to people who've made these calculations. Mick West is one of them. He made it clear to my audience in no uncertain terms that he begs the question of an R value for these mathematics. And that R value, as I stated earlier, was measured by Al-Biruni.
So here's the thing. I'm not sure how much David Whitehead understands. Now, see, Nathan Oakley speaking a little slower now. This is a lot better because then they can understand this. Obviously, Josh is not going to understand anything, and we can't expect him to. I mean, there's no expectation of somebody of his mental state. But David Whitehead, it's unclear whether he understands. It's better Nathan Oakley or whoever, if they really want to get through more to people and educate them and make them more logical, they have to ask way more questions. Like, you have to ask, where did they get the R value from? Because is David Whitehead understanding the presupposition of the radius of the Earth and exactly what he means by it? I'm not sure he is. And Nathan Oakley doesn't seem to care whether he is or not. So, what's going on here?
Al-Biruni measured a geometric tangent point to the horizon to give you that R value by way of acquisition of a height of the mountain measured from a flat plane with elevation angle measurements. So in order to derive the R value in these maths that you're saying that, correct me if I'm wrong, David, you said it was an experiment? It's not. Maybe you'd like to give us the hypothesis for Walter Bislin's model. There won't be one, you just don't know what science is. We do. On a daily basis on Flat Earth Debate, Nathan Oakley 1980 channel, we take apart clowns and their idiotic ideas of what science is. Because we know what science is and how the globe Earth doesn't have any. Meanwhile, this non-science model, with its maths that I understand implicitly, has been debunked because you can't get the R value that the entire model's based on because you can't measure a geometric horizon to give you the R value. We debunked Al-Biruni by debunking the measurement of a geometric sphere edge horizon at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, as denied by one of this show host and affirmed by the other. We know what the globe Earth claims, you don't. We know how the Earth's measured flat with elevation angle measurements, to Polaris giving you your maps and models, including the globe. Your globe's a flat Earth model.
Okay, real quick. Okay, Patrick, it's up to you. You want to go first? I want to let you respond to this. And then I have a few questions coming out of the chat that I'm just going to throw in there. So you go.
I got to go let my kids in. I'll be right back.
Okay, so
I'm going to
Patrick,
respond to the Walter Bislin model real quick. When Nathan says it begs the question, it's very important to realize how fundamental a flaw in logic that is. We asked at the very beginning, is there any evidence that the horizon is Earth curve? We haven't heard any so far. And actually, the answer that we got from Josh was, no, you won't see Earth curve because the Earth is too big. A statement that you can falsify doing simple geometry. And then you go to Walter Bislin's little computation. He starts by begging the question that the Earth is a sphere of radius 3959. And then when the horizon is not where it's supposed to be, he has a whole bunch of other little rigs that he can put in there and say, well, this is why the horizon is different this time. It's this imaginary friend that globe believers have. When they don't find the horizon where it's supposed to be, they explain the Earth curve is not there because it's being hidden by this, that, or the other. Again, begging the question, we know that the Earth curve is being hidden because we know it's a globe. It is circular reasoning. Every
No,
single
that's
time.
incorrect, Patrick, as to the way they're doing this, because they're not just making a model with math. They're also confirming it with direct observations, and they're doing it repeatably. So that's the difference, right? Is there's got to be a missing link, and they would have a response for that particular math that you're bringing up and showing where that flaw is, right?
Wait, what flaw? The response he just explained. So here's the thing. David Whitehead does not appear to be triggered. He doesn't appear to have a mental disability. So this is just genuine incomprehension. I think it's mostly because Patrick and Nathan are just talking so fast. I mean, Patrick was a little bit slower with that. But I don't know. They should ask David if he knows what a begging the question logical fallacy is, or a post hoc logical fallacy is, or a false cause logical fallacy is, how to clearly delineate dependent and independent variables and controls. Because if David doesn't understand those things, he's just going to presuppose and assume there's an explanation. Not intellectually dishonest. I don't believe he's being intellectually dishonest here. Obviously, the MindShock listeners can chime in if they do believe he's being dishonest, but I don't think he is. I think he just doesn't understand these fallacies. And he's putting this blind faith in these other guys because what to him it seems like it's kind of impressive math, like all the models or whatever. He's still not understanding what a presupposition is.
Right?
Yes.
I don't have that. I'm not an expert on that.
The expert was Mick West. Sorry to interrupt.
If we do actual repeatable observations, like, I mean, one of the oldest things that actually, let me go to the audience because they have some of these questions. I'll just throw them in.
Wow, so this has been quite painful. This will be the end of part 1. I will try to finish this up in part 2, where things definitely start to go off the rails for those that find that entertaining, but of course educational as well. Hope everybody found another edition of the MindShock podcast interesting and informative. If you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Obviously, logic and reason are going extinct, and we need to do all we can to preserve it before humans kind of spiral down into this, what some call society's death spiral. Some believe we're circling the drain already, but I don't know. I think there's still time to turn the ship around, so to speak, especially with how quickly ideas are being spread across the interwebs. And I think logic and reason can make a comeback, and we can all do our part. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Access to exclusive streams and chats. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.